definitely don't doubt it. All right, cool. Yeah, thank you guys once again for showing up. And for those that are watching so far, thank you guys for showing up watching. Um, we're doing the ninth episode, which is kind of crazy because we just started this like 10 weeks ago, stuck to it. There's weeks that I didn't want to do it, and then the homies would be like, "Nah, you better keep going." So I was like, "All right, cool." It's good to have that support. So for those that are supporting, thank you guys. People watching, people who are here, keep showing up. People who are interested in showing up, thank you guys. Um, keep showing the support. Really love it. People on the podcast really love it. So we'll keep on pushing forward. New issues, new topics. Sometimes fun things, sometimes hard things. Um, but for today, something that's definitely going to be pretty hard. We'll talk about racism today. Um, with that being said, and I said this earlier, man, getting hugs. What up, Danny? Um, some weeks gonna be hard. Some weeks is not. This week we're talking about racism, as I said. We'll try to keep things pretty not as tense as it could be. I'm gonna state some rules once we get to the main section, but for now we'll keep it kind of loose. Um, and once we get there, we'll get there. But again, let's do a quick go around, introduce yourself, like a 20-second, hey, I'm this person, blah blah blah. That way, for people that end up watching this, they kind of know who you are. Starting with Sasha.
Like online tag. I'm from Alaska, but I go to school in Utah right now. And I met Tevin through Smash tournaments in Anchorage, so that's how I know him. And right now, my kind of main passion is making beats. So yeah.
Cool. Nate.
Yeah, my name's Nate Kreiser. I've known Tevin for like 10 plus years and just vibing out on this podcast.
Devin.
Uh, so I'm Devin. I actually haven't met Tevin. He was a mutual friend of someone I grew up with, Darion. I'm just interested in getting the conversation going. So I'm here to learn and very excited. Very excited.
Cool. Darian.
I'm Darion. I was here last week. I liked what I heard and came back for more.
George.
Yo, what's going on? I'm George. Joey the Genius is my producer name. Met Tevin actually two episodes ago. Invited on for a quick segment and just joining back in for the topic.
Light. You're
No, I'm
muted. All right, you're good.
All right, I was wondering why I was talking and nobody could hear me.
Oh.
My name is Light. I go by Light Strife on all my socials, and I'm here to support the homie Tevin, rocking with him. I think this is could be something beautiful, and I'm ready to see how it unfolds.
Cool. Cam.
Hi, my name is Cameron. I'm originally from the DMV area on the East Coast, and I currently live in Fairbanks, Alaska. It's great to be here.
Word. All right. So, like a dummy, my Streamlabs was muted, so our beginning part where I was explaining the episode didn't get recorded. So, once again, this is episode 9. We're going to talk about racism. Could get steamy, could not. We'll see. But we'll see when it happens. But we'll go ahead and keep on moving on. Got some memes. And this is as chill as the podcast is going to get. Going to hit these memes, and then we're going straight into the meat of everything. No vegetables. Straight meat and potatoes. All right.
Hey,
Y'all ready for
potatoes,
this?
Yeah,
Potatoes are
man.
vegetables.
Potatoes are vegetables? You want to fight me on that one. I don't know if that's true or not.
I'm Googling it right now.
All right. Hit me with those facts. I don't know why I
I've
threw this
seen
on
this-
here, but I just threw it on here.
I've seen this art circulating around my Facebook, and I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah. I seen
Doug was like one of
Is
the.
this supposed to be a?
Yeah, they're vegetables.
the vegetables. Man, I don't know if I want to go with that.
Better pick a fruit.
It's an avocado.
Avocados are fruit, aren't they?
Yeah, avocados are fruit.
That's so weird to me to think about. The one cool thing about Doug, I don't know if you guys seen the show when it was out, like frequently back in the day, but
Yeah.
there was some ambiguity with the different races and whatnot. Like we all
Mhm.
know that Skeeter was black, or not Skeeter. What is his name? Is it Skeeter?
No,
Skeeter?
No, what is
that's
his name?
is it Skeeter? No.
Yeah, his name's Skeeter.
Yeah, his name was Skeeter. I know there's cousin Skeeter, and then Skeeter is a character on here. Yeah,
I'm thinking of Cousin Skeeter.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then Roger was like green for whatever reason. I don't know what he's supposed to be, but there's some ambiguity there.
Yeah. This. Oh my god.
By the Daft Punk.
To summon Bobby Shmurda.
Man, it's not fair. I want Daft Punk back, man.
You know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
Anybody guess
Yeah.
this?
No.
Yeah,
Not Whitney.
that's deep.
What is Whitney supposed to be?
Coke.
Bro.
Wow.
I would have. I mean, I probably would have put Bobby there first, like either her and Bobby, or maybe Bobby there first, not just Whitney. But
Yeah.
you know,
That's
it still hits.
funny.
That's
Bro,
deep.
when I first seen it, I
Wow.
was like, I'm so confused what's going on here. And then someone
I
put in
did
the
not even put that
comments.
together.
Oh, that's deep.
It's messed up though. Can only reverse time for emergency.
Please.
Maybe not a corn dog. Probably like a beef patty for me. But I get it.
A beef patty?
Yeah.
What
Spicy beef patties.
what are beef patties?
Beef patties?
Yeah.
Jamaican beef patties?
Yeah, what I never had that before.
It's just a pastry that has like spicy ground beef inside.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's.
It's like with the pastry shell.
If you know what empanada is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Okay.
This is Jamaican.
Okay. Sounds kind of similar to something one of my New Zealand friends was raving about.
Ooh, yeah.
Oof. Press F in the chat.
Whole hand
Yeah.
on it.
Hit F in
Just
the
go on,
chat.
push him back a
y'all.
little bit. Push him back.
We
I don't know.
push him back a little bit.
Had this happen way too many times.
Yo, I just cut my hair this morning.
You gonna show it off?
I mean, it ain't really I gotta re-dye it, so it's still got some color coming through. But it ain't nothing special.
Alright, if you say
So.
so.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that was missing, essentially.
Oof. Ooh. This man wilding right now.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh.
All right.
Please.
we
It's
getting
just milk.
demonetized
It's
today.
milk. It's fine.
Okay.
The cure to racism.
Wow. Hmm.
Black.
Yeah. I would have thought the same thing. Like, is black the cure to racism? Is that what's being
Or
said?
is it like supposed to be censored or?
No, I think it's supposed to be
Like-
the black square on Instagram.
Oh.
Okay.
I
Okay.
understand.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I know. So
Mm, that one hits kind of deep.
It does. It does. Like I just
Mm.
hear that statement ring around in my head.
Like and you ever kind of know when you're like not around that your name is the one being used. You know what I mean? And you just kind of have to be cool with it because there's nothing really you can do about it. Like, I guess that's just gonna be me.
Which just brings up a question that we will end up discussing later. But leave that at that.
what?
That's
This one killed me.
He's too close.
wow.
It's so bad.
Wow. Yo.
It's so bad.
Yo, where did you guys get these pictures? Like,
Dude, some stuff popped up on Facebook. Some things I just like searched racism memes, and this was.
And he can dunk.
Yeah, and he can dunk. Just
and he can dunk on them.
Yeah, crazy.
To my interracials.
This is the first time I've seen that in meme format because I know it's like been around. Like I've heard old people say this.
I think that's all we got.
Oof.
Did we lose somebody? Cameron dipped out on us. All right. So with that out of the way, what am I looking for? So yeah, as I said, we're just gonna hop straight into it. That way we can give it the proper light it needs, and we'll allow everyone to have a decent amount of talking time. Because previous weeks usually we go through the whole, let's talk about current news, talk about some nerdy stuff, and free roam a little bit, talk about whatever people are trying to bring up. But I really do want to give this the light it deserves. Stuff has been bad in the past for racism. And just now, I think because of social media and all these other platforms, we're able to link up with people and actually see a lot more instances of racism happening. People are able to voice their opinions. So it's nice that these things exist. That way we can combat it a little bit easier, and hopefully we can combat it in some sort of way here on the podcast by discussing it. Different points of view. I try to respect everyone's points of view, and I hope that everyone here does the same as well. Because again, I know it can get heated. I know emotions could be raging, especially on touchy topics like this. So with that being said, say a couple rules. Hopefully you guys respect those. I have like pretty much tyrant power. I can kick all y'all if I wanted to, but I don't want to resort to that power. So to kind of keep it somewhat lighthearted, when someone is talking and you are waiting your turn to speak, just hit me with a pinky up in the air, pinky to the mouth. Just do something to get my attention. I'll try to get to you. So that's rule number one. Rule number two, if you do end up taking like a 5-10 minute monologue, if I hear a decent point being made, I will interject and try to move on to another person speaking. And then that person that was waiting patiently will have the opportunity to either speak or they can allow the person to continue speaking. Does that make sense? Everyone cool with that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He's up. Referencing Masego. I like that.
Wait, what? Did I?
The artist Masego.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't. what got referenced?
You said pinkies up, right? If you have a question, pinkies up.
Oh, I was
Or
thinking about SpongeBob. When in doubt, peeky out. But
fair,
we'll take it too.
fair.
Shout out to Masego. He's doing his thing.
Shouts.
Um, Rule number 3. Um, if you disagree with somebody, I'm perfectly okay with disagreeing with people. Attack the argument, attack the idea, but don't attack the person. And then kind of add on to that rule number 4. Um, if we are going to disagree with somebody, if you heard something that you did agree with what they said, please acknowledge that. Because one of the things that I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't like the idea of if we're talking and discussing something and you're just trying to get your point across and you're not listening to the other side, why are we wasting time? There's no point in even taking an opportunity to speak to the other person. If you're just like, take my idea, and the other person's punching back too, and it's just like no one's gonna get anywhere out with that. So I really hope that you guys can do at least that much. I think it would ease some stuff a little bit better, and it will make different ideas more receptive on both sides of the spectrum. Cool.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yes.
Everyone good? Everyone good?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. Going to double check one thing. Cool. And, okay. So Cameron said he's gonna try to come back in. His internet's messy. All right. So we'll go ahead and keep it pushing then. So talking about racism, what I attempted to do is try to get a pretty diverse group of people. So with that being said, I will kind of let you guys define what you are as far as like your ethnicity, nationality, whatever you want to put in there. So I pose a question, what are you? And I will start with Sasha. What are you?
Well, my mom is from Russia actually, so I'm half Russian, and my dad is just from America, so I guess I'm just Caucasian.
Okay.
In terms of ethnicity.
Okay. Nate, you still there? Nate disappeared. All right, Devin. And then we'll go back to Nate.
I'm mixed. So my dad is black, my mom is white. I identify with both sides, and I don't lean one way or another. I think that as far as everything is concerned, like we're all humans, so I don't take one side over another. I love my heritage from both sides, and I love both sides of my family.
Cool. Nate, did you hear the question?
No, that's okay though. You guys can go ahead.
No, I want you to go next. So
Me?
the first question that we had was, what are you? So your nationality, your
Uh,
ethnicity, whatever way you want to put it.
German. I'm a straight white male. That's pretty much it.
All right.
I don't know what to say.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's good. That's good.
I want to say my nationality is German. So.
Okay. Darian?
I'm black. That's about it.
That's about it.
Yeah.
All right, George.
Question mark. I would say American Indian or Aborigine, indigenous.
Cool. All right, Light.
I am blackety black with I have some people in my family who were Native American and Puerto Rican, but it's not enough. Like it's not enough close to me that I can like claim that, and especially because I don't know the heritage or I've never met those family members. so I don't really claim that.
Hmm.
But I'm black, so
Okay. And I'm black as well. Um, okay. So to get that out of the way, the reason why I asked that question, um, I want to frame this the right way to keep it as equal on both sides, not be biased. So the way that I kind of see, I guess, America specifically, um, America seems to be geared towards one ethnicity being the standard, if that makes sense. And by that, I mean, if I were to see a white person and they're from America, I would say they're American, right? Everyone agree with that?
Hmm.
Okay.
yeah.
If I see a black person or an Asian person, what would I call them?
African or Asian.
American.
Do we all call them African and Asian? Or do we all call them
Both
just
bodies.
American? Or do we give them the hyphenation, like African American, Asian American, Mexican American?
It usually is the
Yeah.
hyphenation.
Is there a reason for that?
I think
Well,
that's a little bit of a
I don't know. That's your
go ahead.
heritage. I don't know. I feel like sometimes people might be disrespectful not to say that, but I just call everyone American. You know, you
Mm.
live in America, you're American. So that's what I say.
Anybody else?
I think I think that's a little bit of a multifaceted question, and that's
I
got
just whatever
mm,
your perspective is on it right now. Like there is right now there's no right or wrong answer. Like
I
whatever you think.
think I think traditionally it is hyphenated because, like you said, traditionally one race has been kind of seen as the default, or the standard, if you will, and it could be out of respect, or it could be just to, differentiate and hold certain status quos uh, in place. I mean, there's like a billion different ways you could go with that question that lead to like different types of arguments or discussions.
Hmm.
But um, but yeah, I do agree with Nate in a sense that like if we live in America, like it shouldn't matter. We are like yes, I am African American, but I'm still an American citizen, and I feel like that should just be recognized and like not even have to be brought up. But we're not there, so I feel like that's why we're having conversations like this
Hmm.
because some people are able to see it and some people aren't. So, which is why racism exists in the first place.
To go off of that point, the beginning of what you said, like the African American part, it could be like a respect thing. Because first we were the N word, then we were colored, and then we were was it N word, colored, then we're black, and then now we're African American. Could it be as time goes by that they're trying to make it like a respectable thing, or like because I guess we were like judged by these names.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know why we've been given like different names, but I guess that's the order. I guess from what it sounds like, it seems more respectable
Mhm.
as like the different names go by. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just an idea, I guess.
Yeah, my idea is I feel like that you're American first. So I'm American, then I'm like a white American, then you're American, then like you have an Asian culture, then you're American, then you have like a black culture and heritage, but the American part should come before any label or any heritage that you have. Like it's just like because you're American, we're all like a melting pot. That's what makes American great. So you're American first, and then you have like your heritage that you brought to this great country. That's what I believe in.
I think that would be a good way to go about it. Because then it does kind of like it doesn't seem as divisive that way, if you put it that way. Um, but that I don't know. It's just a question that kind of like plagued my mind a little bit. So it's like we don't call white people European Americans or if they come from like German, unless they're like unless somebody is like first generation or second generation from Germany or something like that, then we'll
Unless
do
I'm
that.
speaking German.
Yeah, like if it's something like super obvious, then we try to make that claim. But yeah,
So I'll speak to the narrative that I don't think anyone did say. I guess you could call this being devil's advocate, but I would say that maybe the hyphenation is possibly because no one it introduces ambiguity. Like no one knows what it really is to be American. And I say that only in like maybe this might be jumping the gun, but like in the aspect of like what has taken place in the Americas, there were people who were here before what you would consider the standard American. You look out and you would think the average white person might be the American versus, you know, the hyphenation African American, denoting somewhere else rather than America. There were people that were here first, massacred,
Right.
and then the lands were usurped. So over as excuse me if I say your name, was it Darian?
Darion? Yeah.
Darion. As you were saying, maybe it's a matter of like because it, there were atrocities that happened,
Yeah.
and you say multiple different things. The ambiguity is like, well, we don't really know, and we don't want what happened back then to really be found out. So we just call it the melting pot because we want this is everyone, but initially this started off that we don't really know who it was. I'm tossing the light. You got to pinky up.
So yeah, I do kind of want to piggyback. I think I just didn't want to be the one to jump that gun, but uh, but yeah, I think the whole melting pot idea is a nice sentiment, but and like it's almost kind of like a mission statement, you know, like for a business, it's like you put something peaceful or welcoming or inviting out there so people will like come to your business, you know, or your establishment. But they might not, that statement might not actually reflect the views of the people there. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to like simplify this to make this relatable and not like harp too much. But yeah, I think that the melting pot thing is a nice sentiment, and it's something that I've heard my entire life. It's a phrase I've seen in history books, but I don't think it's a sentiment that like all people in this country share, you know, and that's a big part of the problem because the hyphenation between or the hyphenation in African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, Native American could be to differentiate and also to kind of subconsciously keep us believing that the standard American is a straight white male. You know what I mean? And I guess that's me playing devil's advocate in another direction because, yeah, we're all American because we're American citizens. We all live here, but there's still people who don't see us that way. And you know, on one hand, it is a respect thing because we were called derogatory names when our ancestors were brought here, or the Native American ancestors were slaughtered and all that. So it is kind of just like a thing with progression of society in general. So I do believe that part of the reason is to grow and respect those groups of people. But I think that another reason behind it is to kind of keep certain barriers in place. So there's certain social uh, we always stay on like different rungs on the social ladder. You know, it's like so that's me being like devil's advocate and like conspiracy theorist, but you know, but I think it's an interesting conversation to potentially be had.
Devin, Sasha, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Can somebody explain the whole melting pot thing? Because I'm actually not quite sure what you guys are talking about when you say that.
Anybody want to take that?
So the theory of a melting pot is is essentially if you take multiple different aspects. So you yourself, you said you're Caucasian. You identify as Caucasian. The lower rung would say they're black, and above Nate said he German, and DJ, I'm sorry, you said mixed, right?
Yeah.
So all of that not knowing the specific contents of what makes, the mix, you just throw them all. America is the land of the free, home of the brave. So the opportunity for each individual being to have residence in America, it's a melting pot. As far as the cultural aspects that come with their race or whatever, maybe ethics, religion, everything like that. Anything that makes the individual an individual, and then they come into the collective of others that are individuals that may have different viewpoints and different lifestyles and everything. If they're all in the same area, general basis, it's a melting pot where you try to find uniformity amongst all the majority, even though there's differences on the individual basis. If that makes sense.
Cool.
Or if I said that and explained that well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense. Just like bringing everybody together and hopefully it blends together. Like that's what it seems like to me. Devin, got anything you want to add?
No, I think it covered. But actually, to carry on some that Light was talking about, right? Like, so the Hispanic American, the Native American, things like that. I guess I kind of wanted to get like just a small perspective of like how you guys were saying, how he was saying that it is changing us and keeping us into like different, like those little separate areas, right? So it's like you're distinguishing, so that way we know who everybody is, even though they're part of this country. I don't know how often you guys fill out a job application or anything like that, but it always asks you those things, and that's what's listed, like Hispanic American, African American, and things like that. And as soon as he said that it's like the hierarchy of how it's kind of broken down, that's the first thing that came to my mind. So I was wondering, like, what did you guys think about it being there, like that distinguishing feature on something that before anybody even knows you? Is that something that's like acceptable for you guys to think about, or does it kind of fuel what Light was saying in the sense that we're trying to keep that hierarchy? Because this is something that everybody does. Like, you have to get a job if you want to, live eventually, right? And so, is that distinguishing factor pertinent to what you're actually doing, or is that something that, like Light was saying, to keep us separated in those little hierarchies before they even know who you are as a person?
I will say that I think they're not supposed to use that information for the job interview itself. It's just more so for data and like reporting the amount of people that were black, white, whatever, reporting that information. They're not supposed to be using it from what I heard, but I don't know if they could still see that information and use it on the interview or even before the interview. But that's all I got. All right.
But
No, please go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Ariana.
no, because I know
Go ahead, Ariana.
No, you good.
Well, me when I was I live in Spokane, Washington. I came out here from Alaska, and I was trying to do an internship with. I ended up getting it, which brought me out here, and I was like, well, how do I what should I put all this information? Should I put my picture on like my resume and all this other stuff? Like, what should I do? My stepdad told me, you should not do that because, well, then if they put a picture up there, then they know that you're black, and they have this like they can use that information to like build around, like if they want to hire you or not. And so that kind of like it took me back a bit. I'm like, okay, I guess I won't put that on there. Meanwhile, my girlfriend at the time was like, you should put your picture on there so they know. I mean, she was Caucasian. I don't know if like just the way what we're raised is a little different, and like our ideas with the high like companies and how like we're hired on plays a role, or I'm not too sure, but like what Devin was saying, like that hierarchy, my stepdad was trying to eliminate that aspect of it to make it like a level playing field, like whether it's there or not, like just to eliminate that factor at all, which was the idea of him telling me not to do that. So.
Light? Or anybody want to respond to that?
I
Not
will.
really.
Go ahead, Nate.
Go ahead.
So you didn't want to put your profile picture in an interview because you were black and they thought they would be racist and not hire you? Is
Not
that
necessarily.
why?
Not necessarily for them to be racist and not hire me, but just like in America, we have a history of like colors and all this other stuff, and like how hard it is job and whatnot. And so like to eliminate that factor at all, just not to put my face on the picture, which would be like the same as if I were putting my writing my ethnicity down, like Devin was saying, like on a job application.
I don't really agree with that personally, but that's what you choose. I think that you shouldn't matter what you should put whatever you're facing in any interview. And America is about equality, and you should get the job whoever's the most qualified. I
Oh,
don't think. Yeah, I don't really know.
it definitely shouldn't matter, but I'm not the one in charge. I don't own the company. I'm not the one looking
Yeah.
to hire
See,
somebody.
I have like that's kind of you're just like assuming racism. Like you assume that people with that company are going to be racist because you're African American. So I don't think that's. I think that you should put your face on every interview, and if they don't hire you because they're racist, then fuck them. I don't really know what else to say. So
All right, one
I'm
of
gonna
my
let
pinkies.
somebody else
Yeah,
respond to that. I can, but I know everybody's waiting in line to respond.
I'll go to Light and then Devin, then George.
So, just to kind of piggyback off of Devin, Darion, and Nate, because it's like a little bit of all three of those things I want to touch on, and even you, Tevin, because I do think some companies do yeah, at face value, that question is for data. Now, as a little bit of a gray area, because we definitely know that people have their own beliefs and whatnot, and the people in charge definitely do, which typically, the majority of America is white, and you you can't just immediately assume that everyone is racist, but at the same time, it's hard to see that being a black man and being on the receiving end of racism. So naturally, we are trained to look for examples of racism or just be prepared to experience it,
Like a
if that
defense
makes any
mechanism.
sense. Yeah. Um, so do I think that it's mainly used for data? I mean, I feel like it should be, but I know for a fact there's instances where it's not. Um, I've been in management positions before. I've seen like coworkers put resumes at the bottom that had quote unquote black sounding names. You know what
who
I
does
mean?
that? People still
They did
I
studies
just
about
it
that.
But
just
that's
They've done studies about that, saying that black sounding name. So like with Darion, Darion could be a black sounding name, and that
I
could
don't
be
know.
another thing.
Do you think that because you're African American, you're automatically started as a disadvantage to someone who's white?
We'll save that
I'm,
for our next topic.
Because I
I'll
think if you because I
I'll
think if you think that way, that's broke mentality, and America's equality, and you shouldn't live in fear or
true.
live like that. I think that you should go and do whatever you want to do, man.
All right.
And if they're
but
racist, then like fuck them, dude. I
We'll
mean, I
we'll
don't know.
we'll, we'll get into that, Nate. I'm gonna write down exactly what you said, and then we'll get to
Just
that in our
keeping it
next
real.
topic. Yeah, I feel it. I feel it. Devin.
Yeah, so what Nate first touched on, he says like
Hmm.
more of an assumption that we're thinking that company, or I'm sorry, the person applying may think that company is racist. I mean, at least in my opinion, the way I see it, it's less of an assumption and it's more of a predetermination, right? It's something that you have to kind of think of and have that in your head because even though we may be equal, we haven't always been as equal as we claim to be. Now, do we wish that everything in a perfect world happened? Absolutely, right? Do we wish everything lined up? We absolutely do. But to go out there and think that everybody's exactly like you and think that there's no bias in the world, because I mean, I carry my own biases, right? Like, I say things that I'm like, damn, that sounds terrible. Like, I shouldn't say that, but it's something that is so common, and like, a bunch of the population would say it, and it's like you don't really think about it. It's almost second nature. So, if I'm able to do that and portray my bias, then how can I be sure that, you know, something that is inconsequential to me getting a job, which is my race, how can I be sure that a manager or hiring manager or executive X, Y, and Z, it doesn't carry those biases? Because especially most of the people that have hired me, there's a generational gap, right? They have not
Right.
been my age, so they didn't grow up with my views, my knowledge, my ability to have what I have, like something like this, right? I've only met one person here, and we're all from different platforms, but I'm able to get information from all of you, listen to your side, listen to your perspective, and you guys are all outside of my actual friend group. Like, this is knowledge that someone, 10 years ago didn't actually have. So if I have that 10-year generational gap between someone that's hiring me or a 20-year generational gap, I don't know what bias that generation carries. And for me to think that it would be like just they're me, they think the exact same way I do, that would be foolhardy of me, in my opinion, because me and Darion are really good friends. I know we don't think the same on absolutely everything. Exactly. So for me to, say it's an assumption that they're going to be there, I think it's more of like a predetermination that I have to use to kind of protect myself. And that's just the way that I see it.
George?
Devin literally hit it on the head. That was exactly what I was going to state. It's the farthest thing from an assumption, and again, not having the experience. I guess coming from the parent, the generational gap. Speaking of that, we come from lineage where there were time gaps. So when we were instructed and advised to do things that would have been in our best favor as far as security goes, as far as being able to put our best foot forward, we didn't take it with a light of like, well, questioning, because word is valid. So there was truth behind what they were saying from an experience that they've experienced. So it was more so like I had to take this on the ear, like as Devin said, predetermination with caution. They're not advising me to, assume anything by default, but be cautious, be aware. This is the reality. You know that you are equal. There's no difference between the two. However, you aren't in a position to really delegate yourself to be seen as all that you offer.
Yeah, I like that word.
It's unfortunate.
I like that word, awareness. I really like that word a lot. Awareness. That's a good word to use for that. Everyone should be aware about a lot of fucked up shit that happens, and I really like that word. That was a good one, man. Awareness. I like that.
All right. Anybody else want to add anything before we move on to the next section? Sasha, you have anything you want to add? Otherwise, we'll go to Light.
Not really.
No? All right. Go ahead, Light.
I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah. Just to again, because I don't want to get too preachy, but in a sense of like, just kind of just echoing the same thing everybody else said. It's like we shouldn't have to assume that, but like we don't live in the perfect world. Like again, like as George said, we have to accept reality, and the reality of the situation is that racism does exist, and it's not like you can't like walk down the street, and most of the time, if you come into contact with a racist person, you're not going to know unless they do or say something that alerts you to that. So, and it's the same thing with like people on the job or at school or whatever. Like being racist doesn't paint a neon sign over your head. And as people of color, like we just have to be on the lookout for that. You know what I mean? And it kind of goes hand in hand with what you said about thinking that we start off with a disadvantage. Like
I don't believe that. Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's different kinds of just examples and practices and statistics regarding that argument specifically. But the fact that like we have to do these kind of mental gymnastics, and we have to be ready to combat racism before we even get our foot in the door. That it's literally like the race is different right then and there. You know what I mean? So it shouldn't be that way, but it is, unfortunately.
All right. So
I think it.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think it's just like it comes down to your personal experience. Like for some people that may not, might seem weird that some people may have to do that. Like maybe those people just haven't experienced the same kind of things, and everybody kind of comes from a different place, and everybody just kind of has their own, past and what's happened to them, and they kind of the way what they do is based on what they've personally experienced, and everybody's experience is different, and yeah.
Hmm.
I agree with that statement just because even us as like people, the people that are here that are of color, like have experienced different things. I have friends that live in certain neighborhoods where they've never experienced anything like that, and they wouldn't mind putting their face on like a resume or anything of that nature because they haven't experienced any type of bias or anything like that. And so it does come down to experience. And my experience with my stepdad's experience and a few other people's experience, they probably wouldn't do that because of the negative experience that they've had.
Hmm. Cool, cool. So I know we already brought up some things kind of related to this next topic. White privilege. Is it a thing? Does it really exist? Does it not? I would like to have our non-people of color speak first to get that perspective.
Me?
You are one of those people,
Uh,
sure.
White privilege. I don't really believe it exists.
Why is that?
White privilege. I believe racism exists, but I believe white privilege is basically selecting an ethnic race for a collective crime on a bias. What people do is very, very wrong, and you're punishing people from something what happened 100 years ago. And to put that statement on someone is, I think, is very wrong.
All right, Sasha.
Well, I don't really agree with that personally because I think the definition of white privilege isn't like an insult. You're not. It's not saying, "Oh, you're white, so you're privileged, and so you're this." White privilege just means that you don't like. It's not a stigma. It's just the fact that many things are just easier for you in this country because you're white. It's not like how you mentioned like putting things on people that happened 100 years ago. Like you're not saying it's your fault that this or that. It's just that kind of status.
Um, I don't really agree with that personally, but
All right, Devin.
Yeah, I agree with what Sasha said. Right, it's more of a cosmetic thing of you look the part, kind of to go off of what we were talking about earlier, and like the African American, Hispanic American, and just the term American, like how it distinguishes you, and it normally puts you in a category of almost what you look like. That's kind of like looking the part. Now, I wouldn't say that, you know, like Sasha was saying, it doesn't necessarily like make you better, but it gives you more of an opportunity to do things in a different light, um, because when you show up and I got lucky, right? Like I look really white, I have blue eyes, everything like that. I don't experience the like absolutely ridiculous, like in my face type racism, uh, that I've seen like my dad go through or some of my friends, things of that nature. And I think that it definitely plays some type of a part, to kind of go back and talk about those biases, because people have biases of what scares them. I've seen it with like people will cross the street to not walk by a black guy, right? But they don't do the same thing with like a white guy. Uh, both of them are guys, and both of them are dangerous, right? Anything could happen, you know what I mean? But why did you cross just because of one color? So I do think that white privilege is a thing, and it just depends on how you define it, right? I define white privilege as more of a um, leg up about like your color and less about like you're automatically successful, because I know a lot of white people that come from hard areas, harder areas than they would have liked to. So I don't think it's a like instant like card like I'm better than anybody or I'm instantly too wealthy or whatever the case may be. But it's definitely something that cosmetically can take you just a little bit farther, maybe initially, in those situations where you could beat somebody out that doesn't hold that same privilege.
Hmm.
Um, I I agree with what Sasha and Devin was saying. With that, like I'm an American. I know I have American privileges. I can say and do whatever I want. I can go on the internet. I can look up whatever I want. There's other places where you can't do that, and it's not a bad thing. Like you're saying, like white privilege. It's not a bad thing. Like I didn't do anything to deserve this. It's just a fact. Like it just is what it is. And what Devin was saying was like with white privilege, like hmm, for example, white privilege isn't necessarily just like starting like with a leg up. It's also something that just the things that you don't have to deal with, I guess, because like your skin color, like some people said, like you're white, so you must get this easier or that easier, which I don't always agree with, just because Devin was saying like some people that are white that have lived in neighborhoods that were worse than mine, but they also don't have to go through the things that I have to go through, like people walking across the street while like walking in the opposite on the end of the street while I'm walking on a sidewalk, or um, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but just examples like that. Just it's not only getting things, but things that you don't have to deal with, I guess.
I think that makes sense. I guess
Getting pulled over.
Getting pulled over.
There's a hot
Yeah.
button. I think that one could be kind of up in
So
the air. I'm gonna say my One Piece, and then I'm gonna let you go ahead, George. I think it's more so um a bias type thing. For instance, I know a decent majority of the world um prefers lighter skin over darker skin as far as what's considered beautiful, um what be could be considered evil, um different things like that. But I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Oh no, no. I was actually going to kind of tie-ins with the same thing off of what Sasha said. With getting pulled over. It's in a sense I would kind of like equivocate white privilege with benefit of the doubt. Um, you have the luxury of having that 3 seconds of like, okay, yeah, maybe. Whereas with a person of color, there's no second guess, there's no question. So just as Darian as well, Darian, excuse me, has said as well, it's not necessarily that you are given something, but it just happens to be a benefit of even though like black and white and all this other stuff is like it's literally about status. Um, People of color have been bamboozled essentially, like from a person of color, the viewpoint about blackness is about the context is about skin. It's about everything that's applied with everything that we experience with our skin. Whereas the other side of it, whiteness is literally it's status. Both white and black are terms utilized in regards to status. So whiteness, luxury, opportunity, benefits, ability to do and go and have and exist and be freely without reprimand or without having to report or be subjugated to someone. The lines became blurred, and then again, it being status because you have lighter, fairer skin than I do, you become the preferred. So once you go through history and you start looking at it with a lens of like it's preferential rather than like inherent, like you have this because you just have this because you're white, those that came before us, there were things that were set in motion. And then you, by happenstance, years later, that's where the white privilege may come from. It's the benefit of the doubt. It's what was paved before you that you just happen to just fall in place, and the blessing, if you will, just ran over your head. It's not like you did anything to get it. It's not like you're getting something. It's just the benefit of fairer skin.
Go ahead, Light.
All right. So, uh, white privilege has always existed. I just think that, like Tevin was saying at the beginning of the podcast, social media just kind of gives things some new faces and some new names. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't hear people talking about white privilege more than like 5 years ago, but like all these examples, all these experiences, like they're examples of it, and I've experienced them, and I know people who have experienced them their entire lives. You know what I mean? So I think white privilege has always existed, at least in America. Um, it just hasn't had a name until recently. You know what I mean? And to piggyback off what Tevin was saying, how lighter skin is traditionally viewed as more beautiful, and the darker you get, the more undesirable it becomes. If you get on Google, right, and you just type in professional hairstyles, you have to scroll before you get to a black person. Like, it's like, so there's just all these different types of microaggressions and just different things. That's like, okay, well, uh, we have 10 upstanding citizens, 10 model citizens, law abiding citizens, but uh, a person of color, right off the bat, uh, their their appearance is used as a weapon against them, and I feel like that's where like a lot of white privilege comes from, because it's like I've been in a suit before, pulled over. I'm not dressed like a thug or a hoodlum, quote unquote hoodlum. I don't want to use that term, but uh, like it literally doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing sometimes. Like, and that's part of white privilege. It's like, oh well, you quote unquote don't look like you're from here, belong here, whatever. And then people make assumptions, they project assumptions onto me based off my appearance alone. So, and a lot of white people don't have to go through that. And again, it's not your fault, but uh, you're not really going to be able to uh, understand. And I don't ever want you to have to understand it, but it's like there are certain things that you will never experience based off the fact that you are white.
At least we hope
And
you don't.
yeah, I hope you never have to go through them. But world is crazy. But there's just certain things, like I would never want you to get pulled over and harassed simply because somebody thinks you're doing something wrong. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
I think all those are examples of not like white people getting something, but there's something that they don't have to deal with.
Yeah.
Any responses? Anything? No need to hold back.
Um, I guess I'll just say some stuff
Go ahead. Something
about
related.
white privilege and stuff.
Mhm.
I think that everybody has privileges in the world and everything, but I think to say the term white privilege is wrong. I think there's a lot of racism in the world, but I think that statement of white privilege is kind of being the victim and think everyone's out to get you, and kind of living in broke mentality. I feel you have to be aware about racism because it happens in the world every day to every race. But I think that you should be aware about racism. But I think to raise your kids all
Cutting out.
culture race, everyone out in the world's about to get you is not good. Yeah, I think you have to be aware about fucked up shit, but just to assume that there's more racist people in the world than good people, I don't really agree with that because it sounds like everyone's out to get you, and I don't believe that's the case. Like, there's a lot of fucked up shit out there that happens, but I feel like you're just targeting a selective race, and they're just saying from a collective crime of like something that happened 100 years ago, just putting that statement on them, and that's kind of like there's Nazis in Germany, so do you think every white person's a Nazi? That happened like hundreds of years ago. No, you're targeting a selective race and just saying that race is terrible because of that. When I was born here, I had nothing to do with that stuff. Yes, 100 years ago, it was terrible and evil, And, a lot of white people rose up to defend you guys. Abraham Lincoln, we all said that that stuff was bad. Black and Americans, white Americans, we all combined together to defeat slavery. And I think the people that are racist has to do with nature and nurture and their fucked up thinking of they can't get over the past and some stuff. That's just what I think.
All right, Devin.
So just real quick, right? So I just have a question, just specifically for you. So you see
For who?
white privilege as a
Nate.
as like Nate, yeah, for Nate. Sorry. You see white privilege as kind of like like an attack on white people to kind of spin it and have them viewed as racist. Is that what I'm getting from what you're saying?
Yeah, like the whole white guilt thing. Like I don't like I'm white and I'm proud. Why is that bad or whatever? I'm just me being me, I don't hate anybody. I don't hate whatever. Like I don't have any like white guilt or anything. I'm just living my life and whatever happens happens. And there's a lot of racism in the world, more than I thought from having a lot more friends of different ethnicity, but I think I just don't like when people play the victim all the time and stuff. That's all I have to say. I believe racism exists in the world, and you got to shout it out when it does. But I just think living in America when you think everyone's out to get you is not a good way to live because I think there's more good than evil in the world.
All right, Devin.
So just one last thing, right? So you use a lot of I statements, like talking about yourself. Now with that, how could you? And I get it. Like I like where you're coming from. I like where you're saying, and I respect your opinions. But how could you, sit next to Sasha, someone that looks like Sasha on the street, and be aware that they hold possibly the same value that you do, right? So it's not that I shouldn't say we. It's not that I am saying that like you need to feel guilty about this. You're responsible for
I don't
this,
feel guilty about me being me, dude.
right? And so everything like that, and you saying what you believe in, but how can you say that like I get it? It's just like that's how you feel, but not everybody thinks exactly the same. We have 7 people in here. I'm sure you ask a question, like a personal question, you get 7 different answers.
I agree
So
with that.
yeah, so I see where you're saying, I see where you're coming from, and everything like that. But as far as like putting I felt like you put like a really big blanket over it to kind of
I feel like that's what
say that it
white
was.
privilege is, a big blanket over stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so like you're putting kind of a big blanket over it to kind of simplify the term.
Everybody
Without
has
actually
privileges,
Just
man.
hold
We
on, hold on.
all
Let Devin
live
go.
in
Let Devin
America,
go.
though.
Let Devin go. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Devin.
so put a blanket over it to kind of simplify the term instead of actually, diving into it, understanding it from a separate perspective from someone that is outside of the current I statements that you were making. So that's just my opinion.
All right, you have a response to that, Nate? And then we'll let George go.
Um,
Then we'll slowly drift into our
yeah, I
next topic.
mean, it's just we live in a world, and I feel like, there's racist people out there, and there's a lot of fucked up people and everything, but I just feel like just saying white privilege is I feel like it's not a good look because you're basically saying what white privilege is, you're basically saying white people are better than everybody else, and that's not how the world lives. Like, why would you think that way? And I just don't like people who just blame and play the race card on simple shit when I had nothing to do with about it. I mean, I had racism towards me and stuff, and I just think that you're just blaming someone. Like I use that word again, look it up, collective crime, on a certain race that would happen 100 years ago. And yes, I guess I know what happened 100 years ago was very terrible, whatever. But I feel like if you just keep living in the past, and I agree you have to be aware about racism, but if you have that thing about everyone's out to get you, is not a good look in my opinion. And raising your kids thinking that like you're born at like a disadvantage because of your skin color, I don't agree with that. I think you should raise your kids at being awareness about it, but like not being afraid to put like your picture on like a interview exam. Like, what the fuck, dude? Like that's terrible. You should put your picture on like your interview exam. Like, yeah, man, just be you and just a bunch of fucked up shit and just overcome it, man. Like, I have fucked up shit happen to me, and everything, and I just don't like how whenever there's more white people in something, they say it's racist. Like because there's more NBA white coaches than African Americans, they just say that's racist because there's more white coaches than black coaches. Like you can't just say that stuff, dude. Like in hockey, NHL, all the coaches are mostly white. So does that make that all racist? Like I agree, and the what was I gonna say? The opportunity of outcome, meaning that the equality of outcome, and then it's basically saying that everyone has the equal chance of being everything, but the equality of what you're searching for, if you want everything to be the same, it's just hard to get there, and that's where you want to go, and
All
yeah.
right. There's a couple things in there I do want to jump into, but I'll let whoever wants to respond to our initial part.
So I was basically just
Hold
saying
on,
I
hold on,
agree
hold
in
on,
the
hold on.
equality of outcome
We
rather
got it.
than the equality of everyone.
We got it. But we'll get into some of the other details in just a second. So pinky's up if you want to add some final thoughts to this portion.
I know I'm gonna get blasted the fuck up. It's okay. You can say your
Hey
opinions,
man, we're
bro.
good, we're good.
I'm just being respectful and just saying what's on my mind, the
Whoever's
stuff that
pinky,
I see.
whatever pinky is up may speak. Then you'll decide.
George, did you have something you
Like,
wanted to say?
yeah, it's just real quick. Because so because you said a lot.
I did, bro. I
As
did.
far as
Yeah.
so, I'll address it. I'll try and address it in like three key things. The one aspect you mentioned sports. You mentioned NHL. You mentioned
Can we hold that for
basketball.
a
You
sec?
mentioned.
Because I want to make the next topic that.
I'll put this aside.
All right,
All right.
appreciate it.
For sure. You said you don't like people playing victim. Um, let me ask you an honest question. So if you were to have seen any one of the below four people of color on the street suffering something that you yourself, we'll say you witnessed an unjust stop, and you can see clearly without having any kind of like knowledge of anything regarding police force, you see that the situation is being escalated beyond a point that's even justifiable or reasonable at all. Would you say something for that person of not of color, knowing that they're suffering? Because again, you on the basis you said you're aware that racism happens.
Mm-hmm.
Awareness is just the minimum. That can't be the end all and be all. So if you're aware something is happening. Would you say something?
Yes, I believe we all have to be mandated reporters as working with the school. If you see anything happening like abuse, anything terrible, it's your right to speak up for it. So I believe everybody in the world should be a mandated reporter. And when they see racists going after it, then they have to go and support the person who's having the hate crime on or who's getting shit on. And we all need to stick up because I feel like the worst thing is when people say they're not racist, but they see racism happen and they just keep walking like that. That's not good, man. You guys stick up for people of color or of anyone, like white people getting shit on. Doesn't matter who it is, man. If you see discrimination happening, it's your right to go in and step up and help
All right,
people the
George.
best you can.
The
Opinion.
only thing I have to say, in just a response, you said that. I want to devil's advocate. Have you considered possibly that everything that you've stated would have justifiably been from experiencing white privilege? Because you have said that everyone should be treated fairly. No one should have to suffer the feelings of concerns of whether they're putting their face or their name or anything on applications. Are you aware that you're justifiably able to say that because you operate and have experienced white privilege? The thing about racism is that it's more often subtle rather than overt and obvious. So we have to be careful to recognize, like, yeah, you're aware, but are you conscious and cognizant of the fact that, like, though you yourself are not actively doing these things, you are justifiably a recipient on the back end just because of the nature that you are lighter skinned than a person of color.
Yeah, I don't really believe. I only told you what I think about the white privilege thing. I don't really believe in it, but I do believe that from what you're saying is that white people, from the standpoint, have never really been oppressed.
In that way,
In
potentially.
that
Yeah.
Right,
way,
in that way.
yeah. And I feel like the white privilege comes from that, since white people never really been oppressed to the significance of other races, then people just say that, you're privileged because you're this color, because you never really were oppressed. And I agree that, but there's also been like white Spanish slaves, there's been white slaves all over the world if you look back in time and everything. But I mean,
Right,
but yeah,
indentured servants. Yeah.
you do have a point though. Through American's history, white people haven't been more oppressed than Native Americans. I know all about the trial tears, how Native Americans got fucked up. So many races. I think Christopher Columbus was basically like a terrorist. He came in here and he started running some shit, and he basically came in and brought disease to the Native Americans, and yeah, I remember that stuff, and it's not right.
All
But I
right.
think the
Go to
term
Liggett.
white privilege comes from is that, because white people haven't really been oppressed more than other ethnic groups. I think that's what people are trying to say about white privilege.
All
So
right. Light. And then we'll move on to the sports part.
Okay. So there's a lot to unpack there. But again, I'm trying to hit my key points.
Yes,
And
please.
I just want to preface this by saying I do not mean for this to come off hostile. But I need to actually hit my points. So I can't really sugarcoat it either. All right. So, you think that people should be aware of racism? Cool. But as George said, and as I said earlier, racism, a lot of the times it's subtle. You know what I mean? People don't have neon flags that says I'm a racist.
I agree.
Um so saying that you agree that people should be aware of racism, but like you think that people are overly cautious and play victim and they think that everybody's out to get them.
A select
Um
few.
okay. Well, that's kind of a different thing contextually than what you said earlier. Um you can't the reality is, and it does in fact have to do with white privilege, is that you're not really gonna the only way for you to be able to understand why somebody would be defensive or apprehensive or like overly cautious regarding there being a possibility of racism in a situation is because being white, the majority aligns with you. Like, and again, that's not a physical action that you can do or not do. It's just what is. Like the ugly truth of the matter is that racism didn't just die when slavery ended. Like Abraham
I
didn't
agree.
yeah, Abraham Lincoln didn't come in with like, a golden ticket and take us to the promised land. Like, nah, we still had Jim Crow. Uh,
The
you
separate but
know,
equal thing, right? That's the separate but equal, right? Jim Crow. I got you, bro.
like
Yep.
we there's too many instances that you can basically pick from any period of time in American history all the way up to this day to be like, are there some people like the whole Jesse Smollett thing? Like, yeah, he paid people to basically say so he can make a claim that racism was happening to him when it really wasn't. Those specific instances, I can see your argument being valid, but there are so many other incidents, legitimate instances, that if you can literally look to any part of American history all the way up to 2021 and find. So it's not a majority of people of color who are playing victim, and that's the problem. Is that when
I
you
never
have the
said the
majority
majority.
well, no, but I'm saying the majority. But that's what
Okay.
I'm saying. But you're saying that, like, even if there are people who are playing the victim, there's way more that are actually experiencing it. You know what I mean? So, like, there's way more people actually experiencing racism than people who are just making stuff up to get attention. That's what I'm getting at. So to say that you have to be aware of racism and that you acknowledge racism exists, but in the same breath, it's like you're being kind of super dismissive of what white privilege can actually do. And you what privilege, you were right earlier, like different groups of people do have different kinds of privileges, but the majority in America is white people, and white privilege extends, it kind of umbrellas and affects more than just black people. Like it offends Native Americans, Hispanics, Asians, all of that. Like, so it's not an attack on white people. And I think that naturally, if I was black and somebody said that I was wrong for being black, naturally I would feel like a little uncomfortable or insulted or whatever. But like,
Yeah. I don't
you
believe
you
in white guilt, me personally.
it's
Is that what
not,
you,
but
yeah.
no, but like that's what I'm getting at. Like, it's not a thing of like,
Yeah. I know you're
I'm
just
not a
trying
Let
to say like, yeah,
let him
like
go. Let him go.
this.
Let him go. Like, finish your
Okay. I
point,
didn't
and
know you
then
were
it's
still
Nate, I'll give you
talking.
like
My
20
bad, bro.
seconds.
Okay.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a thing of like, it's not a thing of like me trying to attack you personally in this instant. Like, what I'm getting at is that you still, and what George kind of said earlier, is that you still benefit from racist practices that happened generations ago. You know what I mean? Like, just certain families being in certain positions of power or being able to buy property. You know what? Because like that's the thing, is that like there's a whole bunch of like really important things that black people have not been able to do that happened less than 100 years ago. The first black elementary school student to go to an integrated school is only like 60 something years old, right? So if stuff that was happening that racist that long ago or not that long ago, like stuff like that is still going to affect things that are going on today. Like, and that's why we have to be vigilant. We can't just be, allegedly aware or non-racist. You have to seek out
Hmm.
and denounce racism when you have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
20 seconds, Nate.
Well, I guess I agree everything you said, and I guess the point is that I feel like you can take history, you have to learn from history, which is good, but also I believe you have to live in the now, and I like to believe that there are more good people than bad people, and that there's definitely more less racist people than there are racist people in the world. And I don't want to really get in this, but like the whole right privilege or not right privilege, like there's stories that like I don't like how companies they say they have to have a certain quota of certain minorities. So let's say that a white person is more qualified, but the minority gets the job because you have to fit a quota of certain minorities to be in the business, and that can get wishy-washy and stuff there.
Hmm.
So there's just a lot of bullshit out in the world. It's just very sad to see it. And I just want to say that it's just very sad that we even having this conversation in 2021. That I think of as of now, I think more racism has to do with nature and nurture and how people are raised and how their parents are raised. Because I don't think and that's what I think personally. And also, my last thing I have to say is that, I mean, everyone goes through tough times. Like there's still white people that go through like rough shit, and there was a movie called Hillbilly. I forget what it was called. It's a true story about, like white trash, trailer trash shit. Druggies and all that. Pikeys and shit. And the white person overcame the adversity, and he went to Ivy League school, and he got a really good job. And then there were celebrities saying that that was like pro Trump and stuff. I'm like, dude, like white people can be, oppressed too and go through fucked up shit too. Like, and they were saying because a white person overcame obstacles that there was like a pro Trump thing, and how it was showing that it was for Trump because a white person became successful. Like, I gotta call that bullshit out a little bit. Everyone goes through some tough times and
All
here
right.
and there,
Yeah.
and that's kind of all I have to say.
All right. Sasha, you have anything you want to add before we move on to some other things? It's
No.
just chilling. All right. I
Yeah.
feel it. I feel it. All right. Um, so our next section, which we kind of free roamed a little bit, but the next section is supposed to be kind of like a free roam. So there's a lot of things that were brought up. Nate, you brought up some stuff about sports. I'm sure there's a lot of other topics within. Who can leave last light? I know there's a bunch of other topics within the realm of racism and whatnot. They're a little bit lighter, that we can probably get into. But I would say let's go ahead and start off with some of that stuff. Nate, we've talked after the last podcast about some of the sports
Yeah.
stuff. Um, so if you want to go ahead and give the same point that you presented earlier about sports, but let's do the
Yeah, I
Steve
do
Nash thing.
believe,
Let's do the Steve Nash thing.
definitely. Oh, I mean, I do believe that racism exists in all aspects of life, and it's very sad. And unfortunately, in the sports realm, I believe it exists. But one thing I do have to say, as I mentioned this, is that I don't like that whenever there's a white coach hired in sports, that people assume it's racism. Like when Steve Nash got the job, SAS Stephen A. Smith said it's white privilege, and he got the job because he's white. He had no coaching experience or whatever. Whereas Doc Rivers didn't have any coaching experience, he got a job. There's many examples of that, and I don't think that was a good thinking by Stephen A. Smith.
All right. Anybody want to respond? All right, got
You wanna
Devin.
go, Devin? You
Yeah,
can go, Devin.
Devin first, and then we go Darian.
So I'll just give my little perspective, right? So I coach football, right? And a lot of what makes a team like a team. This is for a lot of sports, not for every sports, but it's like your position coaches. Uh, so it's the people that work with, because a head coach can't control everything at all times. It's just not possible. He can't separate himself and do that. So it delegates to where the ultimate success comes from the group as a whole. And the thing that really falls like to the media is who is represented to them. So you don't really hear about the quarterbacks coach or the wide receiver coach or the strength and conditioning coach X, Y, and Z, right? You hear about the head coach. And I think that there's a lot of qualified individuals that will get looked over, and it's not just a one-time occurrence, but a multiple-time occurrence, and that it ends up being like, well, why is it that these specific coaches that are white have a longer leash, more leeway, more rope to hang themselves with than ultimately the coaches of color? So that's just my thing right there. Because to the Super Bowl champions, right? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Bruce Arians is their head coach.
They had a lot of. I like their staff was a lot of. I know where you're going with this.
Well, no. So their supporting staff is obviously very qualified, right? Black males, right? The only person you really knew about was Bruce Arians. So that's just that representation right there. So when you see, thank you so much. So when you see these coaches and things portrayed in the media, it's that head coach. So it's an underrepresented representation of a different race in that spotlight, because more people are capable than just the people you have put up there.
All right, Darian.
Yeah, like to go with what Devin was saying, like we have people that have these credentials that fit these jobs, yet someone like Steve Nash is able to get the job for whatever reason. When we have people of color that like has been doing this for years, whereas Steve Nash has never coached. Like I don't even know if he have any college experience with coaching, yet he still got this job. And that goes with like Sean McVay being like a young head coach. Like he's doing great, Rams, awesome and everything. But prior to that, there was other candidates that had the credentials and the skill set to coach that team. Yet he's still able to get that job. And like there's different excuses for different reasons why they don't get these jobs, or like they're not old enough, they don't have X, Y, and Z. But yet we still see these like white people getting these jobs, like not having to go through these same hurdles that other minorities do.
What's wrong with Steve Nash getting the head coach?
I'm saying that there's other people that have the better credentials than he does, yet they're not able to get that same job. But like Devin said, like
Kyrie Irving and all them picked. That's who they wanted as a coach. They hand
well,
selected him.
well
That's
Kyrie Irving
why they're
said they don't need a head coach, so I don't know what that comment came from.
they.
My argument for Steve Nash is his credentials as like,
He's a two-time MVP, bro. You should be able to hire whoever you want to hire.
in addition to that, he's the point guard, or he was the point guard. And so like him playing that position, it's already been, and like a lot of people say this, the point guard position is almost like the head coach on the floor. So that in itself, I can kind of see him being picked as a head coach. He's done wonderful things. He has great court vision. He has all these other, I guess, minute credentials that aren't put on paper as far as their stats goes. But
Mhm.
that would be my one argument for him. I off the top of my head, I can't name any non-white coaches that have been put in that position. Nate said Doc Rivers. I'm not sure if that's the
There's a
case or not.
couple. I forget. There's a good list.
Yeah,
There's a decent amount of lists, more than you think.
yeah. I know there exists some, and so I do want to make the
Okay.
statement that it's nice to acknowledge both sides, because like if we just blanket all white people are only ones that get into these positions, then like that's not making sense.
Yeah.
But I know those
I
on both
guess
sides. We get
my
both.
yeah, I guess my first thing is that I don't like how people's automatic negative response is that whenever a white coach gets hired, it automatically has to do with racism. And I feel like some people think that, and I don't like how some, because Stephen A. Smith, that's the first thing he said. Oh, it's because of white privilege. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? They want to hire Steve Nash, a two-time MVP, and let him get hired. Like, jeez, bro. Like, that's just my opinion,
Go ahead,
man.
George.
Well, I guess I'm always coming with the narrative that no one really considers or thinks about, but it's more so beyond that. The nature of like, if you just consider any sports avenue, where did it really come from? And the stuff, it always kind of ties back to shit that happened to people of color during slavery. So, I can't think of his name. The boxer. I'm drawing a blank right now, but he started off on a plantation, and with majority of sports, it started out as a competition amongst blacks competing amongst other blacks. So as at least with boxing, um, good God, I can't think of his name. But it started out as like people fighting
Tom
against each other.
Molino, or are you talking about somebody else?
I think some I don't I want to say something with a J.
That was the
Um,
first thing I thought of. Continue.
but again, the nature of selection, yeah, slavery blocks. They want to slave this tall, this wide, penis length, this much, mass, this wide. Oh, we'll take that one. Best bets, best, you know, best product. So as far as that sense, people probably look at it with that subliminal slavery mindset back there as they're perceiving things that are happening. And again, like the scapegoat, racism is a blatant scapegoat. When you look at skin color, it's the easiest thing to identify and look at before you look at the content of somebody's character or anything beyond that. So without understanding so much about, like, you guys are spitting a lot of stuff that I didn't even know about, as far as like people having an issue with Nash being a coach, and statistics and information about what Kyrie said. All of this, I love the sport, but I don't go so far as hearing what they have to say about everything that's going on with the organization. So most people that probably were speaking negative about Steve Nash, as far as, oh, why do you get the head coach, white, are probably literally speaking from the ignorant standpoint, but then also speaking from the basis of like there is innate understanding about how shit has kind of just been the same through history, as far as the suppression of black people or people of color from positions that you often times see white people or people of non-color in. So general managers, head coach positions, all these things. It all follows the same kind of motif. There's a superiority and an inferiority. Commonly, black people have been viewed as the inferior. So you always see white people in these superior roles, and then whenever you see one getting it over another who justifiably is more qualified, more able, more skilled, there's always going to be that, well, this is some racist shit that's happening right now. Even though it may not necessarily be that, that's the first thing that can be drawn to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that becomes an issue of
Uh,
accessibility over time,
mm.
which
Yeah, I think it's kind of sad that that happens. That whenever a white coach gets hired, your first response is it has to do something with racism. I think that's very sad that's the first thing you think about.
all right, Sasha.
I don't think that. I would wonder how often it actually happens. I guess it's again, it
Uh,
probably just comes down to perspective. That's your viewpoint,
yeah,
and it's not that it's not valid or
perspective.
justified.
Yeah.
For
We
me, for
both,
mine,
I
I
think
don't even
we
consider
both
that.
have I think we both have a lot of truth in the conversation. Like I agree with some stuff you're saying. It's all about different viewpoints, like you're just saying, and awareness about it. That's why I'm on the podcast, to learn new stuff about people,
All right,
different
Sasha.
views. Absolutely.
So you say they, like you're saying people are getting upset about that, but who is they? Because you say people, you say they, and you also say you. But who are these people that are doing this? Is this something that you see online? Is this a common trend that you see among people around you, or
I
because I
just
think that's
feel,
important.
yeah, I just feel like whenever not all the time, but when a white person gets hired, there's always people bitching about how it has to do with racism and stuff. And I think there's some people have some valid points, but for them to keep doing it after every white coach gets hired in any sport, it's just a little much, dude. Like, come on, man. Like
Yeah, but
Steve
who?
Nash, he's a two-time MVP, and they were saying it's racism
But I
because
feel as though like I'm entering the conversation at a very late stage, and I don't know exactly where we are. Hey, everybody. Um, but like that's just like a general blanket statement that you're kind of making. Like I feel like not in every single sport somebody gets mad when there's a white coach that's
it's
hired anywhere. Like
mostly
there are
football
great
and
white coaches.
basketball.
Like you got Greg Pop, you got Mike D'Antoni, like people like that. Those are great coaches, and they happen to be white people.
Yeah,
Like I don't feel like people get freaked out when they make a move or they get hired somewhere. Like they're celebrated when they get hired to something. It's not like Greg
yeah.
has gone anywhere, but
The issue
it's
was
just
without credentials, not necessarily that.
without
Just
Yeah,
yeah, without the
credentials,
credentials. Like we were talking about Steve Nash, how he got hired pretty much like the year
but his
after or a
coaching
couple years.
credentials.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, his coaching credentials, like he was a
Appreciate
Canadian
his
basketball
coaching
coach before
software
he was
too.
he was coaching Canadian basketball, and then he started coaching in the NBA. That's just a little bit I know about it, but I mean, you're also when you play basketball, like you learn from your coach. So, and especially as a point guard, it's like someone was saying earlier, like you are going to step into the role, like into the forefront of a coach more because you have to lead your team while you're on the floor. You're a floor general, basically, and they translate over to coaching. Why do you think like Steve Kerr became a coach? Like my man literally was a point guard that shot threes all the time. He was basically a wing, but he was a point guard because he was small and he shot threes, and now he's a coach.
Same thing Mark
One of the
Jackson
most
when he was
successful
coaching.
franchises.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
we
just
just
saying, I think
Doc
you should be
Rivers.
able to hire. You should be able to hire whoever you want to hire as your coach.
Yeah.
And I think that just because someone hires someone doesn't mean it has to do with race. They just like the
But
person. You
then
have a
again,
you
there's
have a
just
good
a lot of
rapport with
people
them.
saying a lot of negative
Yeah.
things at times. Like
Yeah, I
it
think
sucks because
the big issue now is Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator from the Chiefs, is African American. How he has way better credentials than a lot of white people getting the jobs, and that's where some stuff's starting to think of like, why is this dude getting passed over with some of these white coaches that don't have enough experience? And there is some truth to that. So
Darion and like
No, you can go light.
okay.
You've been waiting.
So I just kind of want to touch on what Sasha was saying, just because you're saying, oh, they keep getting pissed off, and it's like it's important to think about who the they we're talking about is,
everyone, white,
because
black, every race.
but
But
no,
it's a
like
small population within
but
those groups.
but no, like I mean, like specifically, because you have to be aware, and this is not even just like about sports, but it could be about anything in general. Like I'm sure you are aware because you said the other day that a lot of the news is bullshit. So I would imagine you do have to be aware that certain stories are framed in a certain light, or they use certain wording
That was more
with,
political stuff than sports stuff,
but
It
it
still
can still be
applies.
it
it can still be a
overlaps. It
Yeah,
overlaps
yeah.
for
it can
sure. I
still be
get what you mean.
applied to it
Yeah,
can
for
still be
sure.
applied to anything because
Oh yeah, anything.
the
Yeah.
wording and the framing of something can be all you need sometimes to rile up a certain group of people.
Yeah.
Especially like if I just got to put some hot words in a headline and I can rile up an entire group of people who may not even pay attention to sports otherwise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
My
but
phone's
that's
about to
what
die, so I'm getting a charger.
All right.
Sorry.
but that's what I'm saying though. It's like it does kind of tie back again to what George was saying, and I'm just like, you just kind of have to be aware of that narrative because you keep saying when you're making a reference to they in regards to whoever's getting upset, but it's like, okay, who is they? The word they is just like a blank internet entity of whoever you decide to put in that statement. You know what I mean? And I can literally write an article with no credentials saying that people are upset because uh, you know, um, Post Malone wore a blue shirt, and I'm just like, I don't know, like,
That's pretty much what
but
Twitter is.
yeah,
Yeah.
uh, but I guess my point is that there's a lot of times where articles and people are because I think the argument or the concern is legitimate and it may not be in this instance specifically, but there are black people in all types of different professions who are looked over because of their skin color. It might not have anything to do with this specific instance, but but historically, it is a thing that happens. And I just think it's important to be aware of the wording of some of the stuff we're looking at. Like I know Stephen A. Smith is the one who said it, but I know how internet journalism can be sometimes, and I think it's really important to look at who's saying what because people are saying they, and supposed people getting upset, and I'm just like, okay, but who are we talking about?
Yeah.
Because to me, it just feels like this is a thing where it's like we're saying people are upset so we can like take
So,
steam away from like legitimate issues. You know what I
so
mean?
I believe, yeah, the owner of the New York Giants is white, and he choose Joe Judge, as a special teams coach from the New England Patriots, who didn't have any coaching experience. He's a special teams coach, and Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator from the Chiefs, is more experienced than him. Now, is that racist because Joe Judge got the job, or did the manager of the Giants just like him better and just hey, I like him as a coach and I want to do that? Like, why does that decision have to be racism? Why can't it just be like some guy just like this coach?
All right, Darian.
But they're trying to win. It doesn't matter if you get liked or not. Like, who cares if you're being liked? We're trying to win. We're trying to get championships. Like, that's the whole point of this. Like,
Yeah,
it
they
don't matter.
Judge would be the best person to bring them a championship.
A special teams coach over an offensive coordinator?
Yeah, the guy from the Ravens was a special teams coach and
I'm
became.
saying you think a special teams coach is going to get you a championship over an offensive coordinator?
They like who they like, man. Why does it have to do with racism?
You can go, Devin.
John,
So just
special teams
so
coach.
going back to what you said earlier, Nate, right? So when we were talking about the job applications and everything like that, what I believe your exact words were what you said is you believe that it should go to the most qualified person.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at the Steve Nash situation, just because that's what we're touching right now, right? So you'd want to hire the most qualified person, right? So comparatively, Steve Nash was a very good player and didn't have a great coaching tutelage. Now he did play a point guard position. That is an understanding, but not every point guard makes a good coach. And that's been prominent throughout history and it's been shown. So why not invest into someone that is a champion, say a Doc Rivers at the time, where it's like saying, do you want this guy fresh out of college or do you want someone that's coming from a different Fortune 500 company? Now that's where it becomes kind of like a question mark, and it's like, well, what is the reason that this college grad got hired over this Fortune 500 guy? I mean, he's already been there. He's hit these profit margins. He's done shown that he can do what we need him to do. And this guy's a little unproven. So why does he get that opportunity over the most qualified person?
All right, before you go, Nate, your volume was leaking into, and so I muted you for just a sec.
That's why.
Yeah.
All right, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So am I gonna have to? Okay, so my turn.
Yep.
Yeah, I believe like the most qualified should get the job and stuff, but I also agree that there's nothing wrong with taking a risk on someone that you like. Like Doc Rivers had no, coaching experience and people took a risk on him and stuff. I think with head coaching and stuff, there can be, you just kind of like who you like and stuff. And I feel like there's some truth to that, and there's also some truth that most qualified gets the job. I think there's a good balance of both. Like John Harbaugh was a special teams coach, and he never had, wasn't that, and then he is the head coach of the Ravens now, and he led them to a Super Bowl championship. But if someone didn't want to take a chance on him, then he would have never got the opportunity. So I believe that there has to be a good balance of both, and believes that who you like is who you like, and I guess the main thing of the story is that if someone picks someone who's more qualified over someone, is that because of racism or is that because someone wants to take a chance on someone who they like? So let's say there were more experienced coaches than John Harbaugh, but the guy liked John Harbaugh and he wanted to get him and he led him to like a Super Bowl.
All right.
I guess that's like the main question. I guess
I'll
what we're
I'll
talking
respond to
about.
that in the non-sportsy way, and then I'll let Darion go,
Yeah.
and then we'll move on. So I thought about this as well, as far as jobs and hiring people based on whatever diversity and whatnot. We had a D&I like 30-minute thing at my job this past week, and I started thinking about some stuff. So my response to that piece is sometimes there's things that different cultures and different ways of thinking can bring that are like way more subtle than just your physical ability, I guess, with sports. Um, for example, let's say that, and I don't know if this is the case or not. Um, Most of the black people I've been around are pretty forward about like if you're screwing up in some way, like we're gonna tell you. If you're messing with me in a certain way, we're gonna tell you. I don't know if that's true for my other black people here, but that's typically how it is. If your culture doesn't necessarily do that and it's kind of like passive aggressive, oh, he said that, she said that, blah blah blah, then like you're gonna miss out on some opportunities to break down and push through to make some good points and conversations at work. Because like one thing on my job right now, I'm pretty new, as far as getting to the career that I'm in, which is software engineering. Um, and there's times where like I mess up and whatnot, and I'm pretty like super honest about that. I don't know if that was the case for the rest of the team, the rest of my team members, like them being honest. But like when we have meetings where we review what we've done the past 2 weeks, like usually I'm one of the first ones to speak. Like, yo, I did this, I messed up with this, I need to do better with this, and then like everyone else starts to jump in on that. I'm not sure if that's like a cultural thing, but that could be like that needs to be taken into consideration. There's more minute details that don't get looked at that you wouldn't know otherwise unless you actually talk to the human being. But go ahead, Darian.
Um, like Nate, you're talking about being like liked and people taking chances, and I was just wondering like why aren't they taking chances on these minorities? Like it's the exact same thing, but like for me, my job, I'm an electrician. I had zero history. Like I know nothing about construction, none of it. I didn't even know what a damn hammer was. Like nothing. Someone took a chance on me, and that's how I got my job. And like I resonate with that. Yes, chance is awesome, but like, what about these other minorities? Where are their chances? I know there's some, like you've named a few, but like just the number, like how often this comes up, it's just not enough. Like if we're talking equal, I don't know. It's just not enough to be called equal, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah. Is it my turn?
Yep,
Or
you got 20
okay.
seconds, and then Devin, you get your
So
20 seconds, and we'll move on.
basically, I believe in the equality of opportunity and not the equality of outcome. So I do believe that the market has grown a long way, and I believe certain ethnicities can split themselves when they're dominant in a certain situation. But I do agree that there is still racism in the world, and definitely in NBA and NHL or any professional sports league, there's more likely than not there's some racism. And I do want to point out that I know during like what was it, the 80s or whatever, everybody was like afraid to draft like a black quarterback because they didn't think they were smart enough. Like that was bullshit. Racism definitely exists in the National Football League. And one of my favorite heroes is actually I read both of his books. Was Tony Dungy, the first African American coach who won a Super Bowl, and this book called Quiet Strength. I think all you guys should read it. And also Uncommon, about how to be an uncommon man and to stick up and to say your strengths, and that's really what I have to say. So you're right. So I think that people do have to take more chances on some minorities and stuff. But I also have to say that when people take chances on some white people, that is not automatically racist. But so it's like a hard viewpoint to look at that
Yeah,
stuff, because I do believe if someone does take a chance on a white person, maybe it is because of racism, or maybe it's because the guy just likes the guy. It's really hard to tell.
yeah,
And I think nowadays it's kind of a wishy-washy thing,
yeah.
and that's kind of what I get my point across.
All right, Devin,
So
and then
Fair
we'll
enough.
move on.
So you use Jim Harbaugh as kind of like a blanket, like, oh, he was
not
special
really a
teams
blanket,
coach.
just like a dude that
Well, you're saying it to kind of like justify the means to the end. Well, Jim Harbaugh was a star defensive back at Miami, drafted into the NFL, coached under Andy Reid, a successful coach for many years before he was actually even given the opportunity to coach. So he showed that he had all of those things at the level required. So it's not. I shouldn't say it's not, but it's to me it's not as comparable to some of these people that don't really have that same resume. So not only did he play at the level, but then he coached at the level through special teams, defensive positions, and as a defensive coordinator before he was actually given, or not given, but hired on as the head coach. So he kind of checked all of these boxes. So to me, that's not a great example. Like, yes, he did coach special teams, but comparatively to him and Joe Judge, who was a constant backup quarterback and hasn't really coached at that level, to compare them, or the Steve Nash, he's great at playing but hasn't coached. So to say that those things are exactly the same, or put the blanket on to say it's the same, I don't agree that it is.
All right, moving on. All right.
I guess real quick, I gotta give a shout out to Ron Rivera. He was a minority coach under Andy Reid, and the Panthers took a chance on him to hire him. So
Shout out to
shout
Ron
out to
Rivera.
Ron Rivera. God bless.
All right,
But you do have some points, man. I respect your points, man. Yep.
cool. All right. So next three topics, kind of pushing along a little bit slower than I thought, but it's all good. So next three things that we're gonna run into, which I feel like we kind of talked about this to a certain degree. We just kind of hit the finer points. Um, First off, we have systemic racism, and then after that, we'll do some. If you guys have any stories of racism, I think we should hear those, and then after that, we do some free roam again if you guys want to hit anything else. But first off, systemic racism. Does it exist? Anybody? Anybody? Pinky up.
Yes.
We see them.
Yes.
Who wants to tackle that one?
Yes.
So what's
Yes.
like the sorry for my audio.
The
I
definition?
still switch it back. Yeah, the pure, or like I shouldn't say pure. That might be kind of fucked. Like, what is the like definition of of radical racism? That there's automatically racism, like in the world, or like just people just hate on someone because they just hate on them. Like, what's like
Systemic racism.
the true definition of that? Yeah.
Anybody want to give us a definition?
You want like the Webster dictionary version?
Oh no, just keeping it real with me, because I have like a views
I
of
don't
it, but
know. Well,
I don't
basically,
want to.
Well, first
no,
let's hear your
systemic
view
racism
first,
is.
and then Gio, you go ahead and give us a lowdown.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
What's your
Uh,
view of it then?
That people are just automatically hating on a certain race because they don't like them.
All right, so that's pretty general.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Gio.
that's very general. Yes. Realistically,
Throughout the
systemic
corporate ladder.
racism is the what?
I guess that also goes through the corporate ladder of like business and stuff, and yeah,
Go ahead, Gio.
Through the
yeah,
corporate
good.
ladder. Okay. All right. So basically, basically, systemic racism is the idea, or basically the institution that um, the the system. I'm using system in the in my answer. Basically, America and other countries, when they were built, uh, in their inception, basically they made it so that certain marginalized people, different people of not the ruling class per se, and realistically, when I'm thinking class, I'm also thinking race. The people that aren't in power, they made it harder for them to succeed in life. Um, with ideas like there's small little nuances within it, like redlining for one, housing in like school districts, the bank system. Um, there's all sorts of little things that just made it harder for non-white people to get ahead and maintain a substantial form of living. For real. I'm doing terribly at explaining it, uh, but basically, it's harder for POCs to get ahead in life because the people in power at the time, which were white people, didn't want them to. It's more so keeping the rich rich and the poor poor kind of deal.
Yeah.
So with that being said, it does exist. It was, deeply rooted in a lot of the things that we did. Slavery was, one of them. And when you got to think about it, when they actually freed the slaves, they freed them, but like they didn't give them anything. There was like no land given to slaves. They kind of just had to work for it. So what do? They work for, minimum wage, beyond minimum wage. Like they weren't getting paid much of anything to try to
Work on
buy
the
land.
plantations.
They were literally let off of the plantations where they were working for free anyway, to now be hired by them and get paid very little anyway. So like systemic racism is most certainly a thing, and it still lives in our day to day because we see it in everything. You see it in your prison system, you see it in uh you see it in your I really don't want to like attack school systems because schools are getting so much better about it, but like it basically lives in a lot of America
Meth
and
deal.
other countries.
Sasha?
I want to add some stuff to that definition because I think institutionalized racism also falls in that spectrum of like racial profiling in the police force or in other aspects of society, like for example, like what we talked about being pulled over. Like if you're white, like you probably have less of a chance of, you know, being treated really aggressively, or the police treating you with aggression. Or like for example, when I was driving down through southern Arizona, there are all these like checkpoints, these like immigration checkpoints where they look in your car and make sure you're not like an illegal immigrant. Like they see that we're white and they instantly just let us through. Just things like that. Like if I was not white and my family wasn't white, or if we looked Hispanic, they would likely question us and look through our car and check our documents and things like that. So I think that it encompasses all of that kind of stuff as well.
Dang. Darren, you got anything? And then we'll go to Light.
I guess like an example using like the definition that was used, kind of like game of Monopoly. And so you're starting off like everyone's equal. Well, not everyone. So you got 400 years where certain people got a head start, and then now it's at this point we're supposed to be equal, and they're like, well, let's play the game. Well, everything's already been bought up, like everything's been built. There's like no land given, like was saying before, and so it's like now play the game. Like these people have the money, have all these different things that rule all these certain parts of the world, and then now you just have to play by these rules and try to make your own way.
Go ahead, Light.
Yeah, I just kind of want to echo the same points that Gio, Darion, and Sasha have all been kind of saying. Because Nate, you were saying something earlier about how people just need to work hard and overcome adversity, and that's fine. Like that's good for it, it looks good on paper, but that's not reality for a lot of people. And it's because, like people have been saying, there was just 400 years where uh black people didn't have anything. And by the time uh slavery was officially abolished, now it's like, okay, well you're not slaves anymore. But we already bought all the land, we already settled in all these places. We already established all these laws and practices, and now you have to play by our rules. Like white people and black people did not start on the same footing in America,
So
and
now you can go after everything's now you can start to play.
yeah, and it's like a lot of that stuff just isn't like there are some people who legitimately think, oh well, slavery is over, so like it's fine. Like you should just be able to do what we did. Like, nah, y'all had 400 plus years to do this, and then there's still, even if we get past the end of slavery, we still got segregation. We still got minorities and women not being able to vote on their elected officials to represent them accurately. Uh, you know, later than that, um, there's all these like redlining, the school system, the prison system, uh, racial profiling, police brutality, like all of that. Like, and that's the thing is like people hear the word systemic racism and they like a lot. At least in my personal experience, when I talk to people about systemic racism, the first place they jump to is police brutality, and they think that's where like the entire issue is, and that's like it doesn't start or stop there. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different examples. Uh, like I said earlier, if you get on Google and you look up professional hairstyles, you have to scroll before you get to a black person. And it's just like all these things that are just ingrained in society through different practices and rules. And it's like, what's the exact word I'm looking for? The exact phrase I wanted to say. Um, White people today, old white people and young white people, people your age and people even younger than you, are still benefiting from a lot of these racist practices that were put in place generations ago. And even if we realize that these practices are wrong, we're still not going to be able to dismantle them overnight, right? Because it just doesn't work that way. Like we can't just be like, oh, something is wrong. Let's just uh, change it from top to bottom. And it's like there are people who want to change the system from top to bottom that are viewed as radicals, because the status quo is being threatened, and people who have been comfortable historically in America that would be white people, they feel like the possibility of minorities having equal footing could potentially threaten them. And if you're scared that equality will hurt you, then subconsciously I feel like you already know that systemic racism exists. You know what I mean? People just don't say it. But I don't know. We have to stop. We have to get out of our comfort if we're really going to progress. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And it definitely does exist. And I've experienced it, at least on a personal level. I go through it at my job right now. But, again, like Darion was saying, I have to play the game because it's either deal with racist white people in order to get a paycheck, or I'm unemployed. So, like, I go get. I guess the argument there would be go get another job. But I mean, it's like I've experienced it at different points in my life, at different points in my life at different jobs. So it's not an isolated incident. It's not just like a random, you know, coincidence. Like it exists,
Hmm.
and it's very real for people that look like us.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, it absolutely exists. White systemic racism, and it's one of those things that people often deflect what it means by what they want to understand it by. Systemic, the nature of systemic is systems. Systems don't just pop up. Like how now in 2021 we have the ability with the phone to see instances that just pop up in different states that we may not be, or just circumstances that are happening that to the person that's oblivious to the nature is just like, oh my God, it just popped up out of nowhere. But the thing is, these are systems. Things happen in order structurally. So as far as systemic racism, the one thing that I always kind of it's funny for me, but I always bring this back to an statement is like if you go back construction era, um, it was black codes, black codes. There with indentured servants and African servants, they even though everyone has this um, misconception that we had uneven odds outside of slavery, when whites were in indentured slaves, they were just as equal as black people that were in slavery as well. It was just only that after they were outside of their time or served time that you started seeing how there were different playing fields, how there were two different worlds, or people say two different Americas, but that's what the inception. White indentured slaves, they were incentivized after they served their time frames to then either buy land or have access to land to buy and purchase that inherently uh, disenfranchised black folk that were slaves equally like them. Um, so out of the gate, you already have an incentivization on being white. Um, I pulled it up here just so I could try and see it. With Reconstruction, it was 1865 to 1877. So again, black codes, vagrancy laws. You have so vagrancy laws. I think Jill had touched on this as well. The moment they got off of plantations, if slaves didn't have somewhere to go, they were liable to be put right back in slavery on another plantation. So you already have people that were marginalized and disenfranchised from the gate as soon as they exited slavery. No different than white people. However, white people were incentivized. You could get land. You were able to get grants and money if you had land, and then were able to get slaves that were or capture people who were like roamers, again vagrants. So it's not as if like these things just happen. These were all systems that were introduced, and when you have to look at it from like understanding law, legalese, and legislature that goes into place. These things didn't just happen. So it's like people coming from an emotional state, like, oh my God, I'm a victim. Oh, you're picking on me because I'm black. Like, no, once you start going back and you look at these things systematically as they were introduced, $5 Indians, what's that like? The picture starts becoming painted clear how to be white was a regardless like skin color, but again, it was status, whiteness. It was something to be glorified. It was something to be sought after. Versus the other the aspect, darker skin, you're disparaged. You don't have much. You don't have anything. So it's definitely systemic. A lot of the things that we deal with, everyone touched on it in different aspects. Redlining, just redlining, inability to get loans for housing, segregation, separations with schools, just how things were drawn out. It inherently shows itself systemic racism, access. Racism only can really come down and be boiled down to the basis of access. Who has been denied access and who has been given access?
Yeah.
Once you start looking at
Exponentially
it in
builds
those,
up.
Yeah, once you start looking at it in terms like that, then it makes itself clear and it makes itself evident. And it's no longer a matter of having an emotional response like, oh, I know I'm white, but I know I didn't do this myself. It doesn't matter about what you did yourself. Again, the thing on with white privilege is the fact that it's the benefit of you're receiving this benefit. You're a recipient of this benefit of things that have been laid before all of us. And it's the funny thing about people stating the cliche phrase, history repeats itself if you're ignorant, but people don't do their due diligence and study history to know the nature of how things have become how they are now. They're hyper emotionalized. So before we readily ask the questions and see how systematically things are put in place, we'll jump to the emotion and be like, oh, damn, it shouldn't be me. Oh, why me? Why black people? Oh, this is so terrible. Justified, but your viewpoint is skewed. If you're always paying attention to the wrong thing, then you're never asking the right questions to get to the root. So racism, yes, it inherently is systemic. Whether it came from a malicious intent or if it came from a greedy hey, I want it all for myself and I'll give it to mine and mine own. That's where the argument kind of gets off into a tangent of like people's emotions. But if we keep things in their order and look at them logically, chronologically, then you start seeing the picture of how like, okay, well, yeah, a lot of things were withheld from brown people of color, black folk, brown folk, people of color. Whereas those very same things were just handed over to non-POC. So where we start the discussion is the part which is difficult because again, Nate, not calling you out, but some of the statements that you've made as far as wanting things to be equal and how it shouldn't be that someone should fear putting the information out there and their face out there, that comes from a place of having secured comfort and not ever being discriminated against based upon those two shallow aspects, what you look like or your name. So the conversation definitely can be had. It is, and I feel it's very necessary. And people being able to put their emotions to the side and being able to look at fact for what it is, I think there would be progress as far as the realization and understanding that systemic racism exists and being able to then dismantle it and move to a position where, you know, things may actually be in a neutral zone in a sense.
Snaps.
Yeah, 2 taps, play snap.
I can go. I can say some stuff if you want.
Yeah. You got a little bit of time, and
I
then
feel
we'll
like I'm
move on.
kind of the only person who has different views from all you guys, but I love all you, and I'm really glad I'm on here to learn different type of views. So what I can say is, from my experience living on this world, is I do believe that systemic racism exists. It's very bad, and I guess the two main things is that I know systemic racism exists, but I don't like how some people, I keep using this word over again, use a collective crime, meaning they punish white people from what white people did 100 years ago, when I have no link to any of that from what they did,
Mike,
and they call me out and stuff.
I have a
That's one
question.
thing I don't like.
A question,
Yeah,
if I may, Nate. What is the
yeah.
punishment?
Oh, the punishment is just saying that I have white privilege, just saying that everything in life is easy for me and that I have one step above everybody when I'm just me, dude. Like just what I'm white and I work hard. That's because it was easy for me to get a degree. No, dude, I worked hard and I got a degree. I mean, what? It wasn't because I was white, it was easier. I had to work my ass off to get a good degree. And I don't like when people belittle white people getting degrees because they think it's so easy for them because they're white. Like, dude, we work just as hard as everybody else. And, I believe there's racism happens in college campus. One of the biggest ones was Harvard. They were making the SATs harder for Asians because they do better than everybody else, and they wanted an even playing field. That's completely racist right there. But I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say is that racism exists, systemic racism exists. I believe in all you guys. It's really fucked up that we have to even keep talking about it. And I just feel like it has to come down to like the whole nature nurture thing of how someone's raised. And that's why I feel like, most of the races are like all those fucking old white people and all that shit and all that bullshit and stuff. But I mean, yeah, man, that's pretty much I have to say is that I guess I have to say is that I love everyone, but I just don't like how for every little thing someone plays the victim about how everyone's out to get them, which I don't think that's the case. I think there's more good people than bad people, but I do agree that you have to be super aware and have a healthy alertness about a bunch of crazy shit happening because I mean, you might not think this, but I've witnessed racism against me. I worked at a bank in Harrisburg
Let's do this in a sec.
and
Right after this, we're going to talk about stories, and then we'll
all
close it
right,
out.
word. All right, I'm about to take a piss, but I just wanted to, get some stuff across,
All
and I
right,
just, love all you guys. I'll be back.
all right. Darion, Light.
Um, well, I had a question or a statement for him. Like, yeah, you feel this way that um, they say these things about white privilege, and you might feel that like it's negative, and all those things that you said were like negative, like emotions or words, statements towards you, but none of them can hurt you. Like, nothing that we think or say can stop you from getting a job, can stop you from going anywhere. Like, yeah, those are words and like those are feelings, but that's about it. Like, nothing can, like, none of that stuff can stop you from living your everyday life. None of that.
Or
Whereas
or to
for
put being
minorities,
put in fear of that.
yeah, like, there's no repercussions behind any of those stuff like, when it comes to your lifestyle and the way that you live. Whereas for us, it's a little different. Like, I can't say certain things at my job, like even if I feel like it, but I hear other people say whatever they want at any time. Like, I see the N word written down on the walls all the time in bathrooms, or some people working at all these other jobs, they say the N words and they use words negatively, and I can't say nothing, or I'll be the angry black man. Like, and you may think that, well, I should step up and say something. Well, I'm outnumbered. Like, who's gonna have my back? Like, this is my job, my life. Like, I don't
All
know.
right, all right, Light. Keep it short. Go
I,
piss. Go piss. Cause I need you back for the next part. I need you listening.
yeah, I was basically just gonna touch on what you said. We're talking about white privilege being punishment for white people, and I'm just like, okay, but what is the punishment? And then
Yeah,
like Darian was saying, I'm like, okay, like we got opinions, but it's really not that much of an opinion. Like my man Darian was saying, like at the end of the day, what I say or feel is not gonna stop a white person somewhere from getting a job. It's like talking about degrees and whatnot, and like nobody's saying that the physical act of getting that degree is any different than it would be for me. But it's just little small things that may or may not happen on the way. It's like, okay, you coming home late from campus one day, you might get stopped by a cop. Some people may not. Some people, might get bothered. And then now you got to spend a night or a weekend in jail, and that interrupts your studies. It's like, there's like a million different things. I don't need to get into it. Like, everybody here knows. But, uh, yeah, I just. Y'all know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Anybody else want to drop any last bits before we talk about stories? Devin, Sasha, any thoughts?
I would just like to say, I appreciate all y'all coming out and sharing your viewpoints. I do understand that systemic racism is a real thing, and I liked how George like had kind of brought it back and had touched on, the whole, not just George, but Light and Darion as well, touched on the whole 400-year thing, right? Um, and the way that it kind of hit me, and like the way I see it a little bit, right, is in that 400-year time frame. What was one of the biggest things that separated is wealth, right? You're able to
yeah,
build wealth. You're able to, establish the things that you need to live. It's what is it? It's like you need food, water, and shelter, right? So you got food, water taken care of, but that shelter, that land part, it's difficult to come by, because like George was saying, when slaves were released, they were given the hard packed land, the land where they knew nothing was going to grow, right? So if you want to work or you want to do anything, you can go back to the previous plantation you were at, and we'll pay you a wage. but oh, unfortunately, I have to feed you, so now I have to take from your wage because I haven't paid you yet. Oh, you're having trouble in your where you live. Okay, well, I'll help you fix it, but now I can't pay you even more. So unfortunately, now you owe me money. And so now every month, that same pretty much rent that's due, you're going farther in the hole. So you're not just sitting there, you're passing that debt to now your lineage, right? Your kids and everything like that. And I think that's one of part of the system that was touched on. So I'd like to thank all of y'all for your great points of views and everything. I think it was awesome.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sasha, then we'll move on.
Speaking of land, like even now with like Indian reservations, like just think about that. Like they like I many years ago, yes, but basically it's land that was taken from them and a little part of it was given back to live on. And like I don't know, just something about that just seems really messed up still to this day, which it is, but like it's kind of different now because I mean, the people that live there, I mean, this is like generations later, but still it's like an allotment of land that's a piece of the land that was taken, like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of ties into that too.
Yeah.
If I could say something real quick about the Native Americans, you know Mount Rushmore, how there's those 4 presidents on it?
Yeah.
Those 4 presidents, like, kind of like oppressed Native Americans, if you look back at the history and stuff. So I agree that Mount Rushmore, it's, pro-America, but I think you also have to acknowledge the deep history about it too, about what some of those presidents did.
What wasn't Mount Rushmore native land that was
That's what it was. Yeah, I don't think they did anything to Indians. I think they did it on Native American land. I don't know. I know it was something there was some fucked up shit going on with that. That's all I gotta say.
It was
I'm
like
not saying,
they thought of it as sacred land, the sacred Black Hills, and that's what it was for the Native
Yeah.
American culture.
So those presidents could have been good and did nothing nothing wrong to Native Americans. I just know that something was fishy with that whole, Mount Rushmore thing. There was some, some not good stuff going on with that.
Yeah. Gary, you got anything else you wanted to add? And then we'll move on.
Did, but I forgot.
Oh, all good. All right, on to our next section, and then we have like another free roam section, but I think we'll just wrap up after this next section. So I know we all have faced our own version of racism or what we perceive to be as racist. I'll kind of leave that up to the individuals to get across. So I'm interested in some stories because I know one person I want to be here, and thank God he showed up. I don't know if he's still here right now, but Gio, I know Gio's had some stories. I know Light has some stories that I've heard. Daria, I'm pretty sure we've talked about it a little bit. So I'm curious, like what you guys have been through. If you guys are willing to put that out there.
Who do you
Yeah,
want?
I mean, I have no issue. Oh, go ahead, Light.
No, I just didn't know. I didn't hear you start talking. You go ahead.
No, you got it. All right, pass the buck. You got it.
This man's deep in a box of Chinese food or something.
I'm chilling.
Go ahead, Light.
So yeah, I mean, basically, like, unfortunately, I didn't. I've just become more socially aware and more politically aware and active in recent years, and a lot of catalysts for stuff like that was like Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, Sandra Bland, so on and so forth. And I guess when I was in high school, like, yeah, I knew racism existed, but like, being a kid, just going to school, having fun with your friends, it's a little different. But like, I kind of touched on this earlier. Like, I'll never forget like being pulled over by cops in like full suit and tie, and basically, just being harassed because I didn't look like I was where I belonged, and the cop wanted to search my car. And I'm like, I don't have anything illegal. I'm not under the influence of any substance. There's no drugs or alcohol in the car. Nothing is visible. And he kept like, do you have anything dangerous? Are you sure you don't have anything dangerous on you? And I'm like, no, officer, I do not. And I think I'm sorry if I'm like all over the place or if I'm jumping the gun a little bit. Um, but you know, it kind of ties back into the conversation. Like as people of color, a lot of our parents have with us as kids because people like Trayvon Martin and Tamir Rice are killed for little to no reason at all, unjustly. But parents always taught me if you're getting pulled over by a cop, make sure your hands are on the wheel at 2 and 10. You know, uh, speak respectfully, answer when spoken to, don't speak out of tone, you know what I mean? All of that. Like just different brown people that I grew up around have always kind of taught me that. And it's not because like they're not teaching me to be scared of an individual, but it's literally just we want to see you come home. And for that whole police interaction, for that police officer to have his hand on his gun the entire time, like what do you think that does to somebody like me? And, you know, I was just going somewhere to blow off some steam. Nobody knew where I was. You know what I mean? I didn't announce to anybody that I was like going somewhere. So if something happens to me, like nobody's gonna know until whenever, you know. But this police officer's got his gun on his hand on his gun during the entire interaction. I'm trying to keep my hands visible. You know what I mean? And he's asking me for my identification, which is in my pocket, right? My right pants, like my front right pants pocket. So if I reach, no matter how slow I reach for that ID, it's gonna look like I'm reaching for something. You know what I mean? And he starts getting all fidgety. And was like, whoa, 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 slow down. And starts like gripping his gun a little tighter. And I'm like, sir, relax. You told me to reach for my identification. This is where it is. Like, well, he's like, well, don't be moving, you know, all quick and whatnot. I don't know you. You don't know me. Blah, blah, blah. And like, I just remember being so frustrated because I hear the argument a lot that, you know, cops are human too and they have emotions and they make mistakes. True. But like you're putting on your badge and carrying around a gun with under under the understanding that you're supposed to be protecting and serving the public, which I am a part of. You know what I mean? So if you're going to choose that profession, then you have to be held to a higher standard. You can't just be be held to the same level of accountability as some random Joe Schmo off the street. I'm getting off topic, but um, but yeah, it was terrifying. And then he basically just kept accosting me, asking me if I had anything in the car, and I was like, no. And me just wanting to get out of that situation, I'm like, all right, fine. Do you want to search the car? Knowing that I did not have to let him do that, but I wanted to get out of that situation. You know what I mean? So he took me, and we're like in a gas station parking lot. It's some rural white town in the middle of nowhere. Um, so he put me on the hood of his car and handcuffed me while he searched the driver's side, the passenger side, the back seat, and the trunk. And I don't know what he was hoping to find. It was raining. I was pissed off, but I'm just like, all right, let me just entertain this bullshit just so I can get out of the situation. You know what I mean? Because I've seen too much stuff where stuff escalates, and he was clearly scared of me. I had no weapons on him, and like that's the thing. I mean, I had no weapons on me or on my person or in the vehicle, and that's what I don't understand is these police officers claim that they're scared of people. I'm just gonna say people in general, and take race out of the equation. But we are talking about black people. Um, they claim that they're scared, but in reality, the police officer has all the power in that situation. Like he's got the power to reach for his taser or his gun if he wants to. If he decides to tase or shoot me, more than likely it's probably going to be considered justified. You know what I mean? And there's literally nothing I can do. If he gets scared, I could end up dead. But I am scared and I can do nothing about it because I just have to hope that he actually does his job and like keeps his nerve. And that's like a really big problem uh, for people who are supposed to be protecting American citizens. So that's one of my stories. If I could tell them all, we'd be here all day. But I'm sorry for rambling.
Next. Gio, you want to go? All right.
Nah, you weren't rambling, bro. You're good. I mean, of course, I have similar stories to that. I mean, anything kind of just with police, you only assume the. Unfortunately, the worst of it being, I'm still alive, but a gun was drawn on me is kind of the situation. But yeah, I know it's happened more often than I would ever expect it to. For me, just for my personality, what I actually do, and who I am. But yeah, no, I've had guns drawn on me at traffic stops, things like that. But I would say primarily now where I'm starting to view it, and I'll say this isn't even really directed towards me, but I work in construction, and in the field of construction, I mean, there's certainly like in Philadelphia, there's kind of like your normal workers, and then your there. I will say there's also people that may or may not be illegal workers that end up getting hired on the jobs, but these workers um, are typically just Hispanic in heritage, but doesn't matter who they are. If they don't speak your language, people don't really uh, try to figure out who they are in a sense, but everyone just calls them Mexicans, and it's not exactly right for me to just assume someone's race just because they are of Hispanic origin. But yeah, no, on my jobs, I'll go to many sites, and if you see, you know, a couple of Hispanic people, they just assume that they're Mexicans, and it's always the Mexicans in conversation. That is still a true thing that people end up saying, and I'm just like, why are you guys even doing this? Um, so yeah, I'm still in this day experiencing something that before was so foreign to me, something I never thought I would actually hear, and something I honestly wouldn't expect from people anymore. But it's that just comes off of people's tongues, just normal conversations, just to minimize an entire group of people into one one country of people just because they're different than them. It's strange to see, and it's unfortunate that it's still happening. But that's one thing that I see almost every single day. Every single day I'm at work, which is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And you can only do so much to correct someone until they're like, oh, well, why do you care so much? And I'm just like, well, because it's not right. But morality is a thing when things aren't right. They don't see it as an issue because it's something that they've grown up with, or there's something that they've always done, or it's something that their bosses have done. It's just something that was continued to happen, and until someone says something about it, it would probably continue to happen always. And even then, if you say something about it, it's just not presented in front of you at that point. They might switch up and say something different in front of me, but when they're still talking with their other coworkers, that's how they speak. That's how they continue to speak. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Gio. Anybody
Yeah, no
else?
problem.
George, you hit me with one of these.
Yes, hit the good old,
Dr. Evil.
good old. Um, so my experience was actually I think it was 2009 after I graduated, and I was with a buddy of mine who was about to be deployed to the Navy, and it was our last day hanging out, and I picked him up from work And we were just driving around. So if you think like a couple years ago, the common thing for people in high school to do was just to drive around in the neighborhood, $5 of gas on the tank, and
Listen
music,
to
and you just get
music,
to go, just
yeah.
bust it. So me and my boy, we were just driving around our neighborhood, and the day prior, he was out with one of his white friends, shooting airsoft guns. So the day that I picked him up from work, he still had his backpack and overnight bag and stuff from the day prior, and he had his airsoft gun with him. So I'm not gonna lie, there was a point in time in our drive where we were out in the boonies in the sticks that he had the airsoft gun and he was shooting at like trees and shit. So, we were being kind of reckless, like living on that GTA kind of thug life type shit. So going around and shooting stuff. So that definitely, but when we got back towards the city, back towards our side, he put the airsoft gun into the car, and we were just kind of on our P's and Q's. We got onto a main road in our neighborhood, Lincolnstown Road, and if you think of Dumb and Dumber, the movie Dumb and Dumber, the van that they drove, it sat kind of high. That exact same type of van was behind me as we were coming down Lincolnstown Road, and we were about 2 or 3 blocks before my neighborhood to go home, and coming to my neighborhood road, I thought to myself, I should go home, but I'm kind of hungry, so I'm about to go to McDonald's. To go to McDonald's, you have to pass the police department, the township police department, which is on the right-hand side. So we end up going the whole way down, get down to McDonald's, and as we pull into the McDonald's drive-through, we hear sirens just going. And we're kind of looking around, not able to see anything because we're behind the structure of the building. So it's like, oh, damn, some shit must have happened just in the past couple of 5 minutes since we came down the main road, which often stuff does, but, we didn't think twice about it. Get to the end of the drive-through after my friend orders his food, and there's a cop at the end of the driveway. And in order to get outside of traffic, we have to turn out and around him and then go past. He's literally in the middle, but we have to come out and to go around. As we go around, I roll down my window and I ask him, like, hey, officer, like, did something happen? Like, should we be careful about going back out on this main road? He looks at us dead, straight face, just don't worry about it. Keep on going. It's about maybe 20 feet. There's a cement wall all along this drive-through that's separating this Sunoco gas station that's on the other side from this McDonald's. So we're driving down. It's again about 20 feet. After the cop tells us to just go ahead, we pass this 20-foot wall, and I'm about to make a right to come out of McDonald's. And then there are 2 patrol cars right there in front, sirens blaring, 2 officers standing outside, guns drawn. And then turn around the corner, pull up, see them, and then hear them shout. The officer behind now pulled up with his sirens on, lights going, and has speaking out the loudspeaker, telling me to stop the car, throw the keys out the window, blah blah blah. Literally in that whole time frame, it might have been about 2.5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes max of this entire situation happening. But the last interaction from speaking to the cop to guns being drawn was about 45 seconds, maybe. And in that entire time, we're sitting there, we're looking at each other thinking like, what the hell just happened? No idea. Long story short, the vehicle that I was describing to you, the van, there was a van that was right behind us that was following us, apparently. And he had, the owner of that vehicle had made a call and said that we were pulling into a Rite Aid parking lot and looked as if we were about to rob it. Now, at no point in time did we pull off the main road and pull into a parking lot. At no point in time did we pull off and pull into Rite Aid. At no point in time did we have anything about us that looked like we would be robbing anything except for this person that made this call to 911, said they saw a gun and described it to a T. This is what the officer said. Described it to a T. And again, it's an airsoft gun. So there's about 1.5 inch long tip, orange tip on the top,
Right.
or the front of it, you should say, that lets it be known that it's not a real gun. But again, this officer says this man, this person, describes it to a T, and full-heartedly believe that we were about to rob a Rite Aid. So me and my friend get detained at gunpoint. He had his knee slammed into the door because of where we pulled off to, trying to get out of the McDonald's. He had his knee slammed to the door. I get thrown in handcuffs, down on the ground. Just it's embarrassing recalling the story because nothing that happened warranted anything. Granted, again, I'm not denying the fact that we weren't in the boonies and he wasn't out the window shooting anything, but I told him to stop and he put the airsoft in the window. So that was well before we even got back into the city, well before we were anywhere near a Rite Aid, well before any of this even could have been a situation of robbing anything. And this officer went off with this narrative of this other person who never revealed themselves, stating that we had a gun, described it to a T, and that we were about to go rob a Rite Aid. And just being met with the guns at gunpoint, it was petrifying because in my mind, as a young kid, frequently listen to hip hop. So, there's a little bit of that base of hearing people talk about the gunplay and whatnot. There's the allure of like, what would happen if you just pull a gun out on somebody? Will they really like, oh my God, and just give you what you want? Or will it really be a terrible situation? Not that we were trying to live that out, but you're a kid. You think these things. It happens. But never in your life would you ever expect that this thought, that you were never having intentions on acting out or giving any kind of life, never would you ever think that something like this would be made manifest in front of you because of someone else. Not something that you actively chose to do and you were like doing something wrong. It was just a matter of like someone else said something that was not factual. And because they described you as being black and there being a gun, a whole different narrative was created, spawned, and now you are a part of. We were held and detained for maybe like 3 or 4 hours. And the officers were going back and forth between my holding cell and my friend's holding cell, trying to say that there was a story between the two of us, and one was lying on the other. One was saying that the other was about to go and rob this place and all this other shit. And I'm sitting here, again, petrified, because the only thing that's running through my mind is that, wow, what would my late mother think of me right now? This isn't the way that she raised me. This isn't anything that I would be involved with. But here I am in the back of a patrol car, not robbing anything, not having actually done anything wrong. But here I am at gunpoint and being told that I can be charged criminally, disorderly conduct, and up. When there was nothing that we actually did that disrupted anyone comparatively to what the officers themselves did, disrupting order and disrupting traffic and everything else. But again, all it took was just the mention of skin color and this supposed precise description of a gun. And then anything beyond that was just as this being wanted to state. And that impacted me and my best friend. However, luckily we were able to get off of that. Nothing was impacting to our record. His mother was a state officer, state trooper. And once she got a hold of the information and she went and talked to the judge, she was like, is this really something that we want to pursue? Because we will go ahead and, take it to the full extent of the law. But this was not what was stated by this person who, when we did try to take it, through legal means, the person didn't want to identify themselves, and then they wanted to redact what they stated as through that call. So just the experience, like being a black person, but not being a black person that subscribes to the violence narrative and the drugs and the interactions with the police, the shit that you would see imposed upon black and brown and people of color. I operate on the opposite. I am law abiding. I love coming home to my family. I respect my family. I respect women. I don't degrade women. I don't do any of these things that are projected onto Black men and Black people as a whole that supports this narrative then where when it becomes a Black person with an officer, there's more commonality in believing like, oh, well, the officer was justified in what they were doing because if only the Black person complied and whatever else, you don't ever hear about this narrative of like the Black person who actually did nothing wrong. And then this unfortunate scenario happened to just align with the stereotype. So one of a myriad of different experiences, but that was the one that I definitely could draw to because it's more commonly relatable.
Much appreciated, man. What
I
you got?
just
What do you got
got
to say? I'm
I
curious.
just got a quick question, comment,
Okay.
not about that. But I'm glad you're still here, and I just think it goes to show that you know what I mean. It's crazy because like people's argument when it deals with Black people and police interactions, the first argument I always see was, "Oh, if you're doing wrong, you don't got nothing to hide, blah blah blah. Just comply, follow the orders." And I'm like, nah, like, because there's law-abiding citizens who haven't done anything wrong, and then there's Black people who might be lawful gun owners and have registered weapons and have that weapon, you know, they went through all the correct channels to obtain and carry that weapon. And it can still become a life or death situation for Black people when they are just exercising their rights that other Americans get to do. The Philando Castile, you know,
Yep.
he that's just one example, but I'm just glad you're here with us and that you were able to share that perspective. But that's what I wanted to say.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Yeah. So again, so you had a air rifle and they thought it was a real gun and called the cops, or how did they know? How did they see you even had a gun or thought?
So it was an airsoft gun.
Okay. Yeah, I was just kind
How,
of confused. Okay.
what's your confusion? How did they see?
Oh, it just seems like if someone saw someone with like a fake gun, they called the cops on you, and it just seems like the cops could have been like, "Yo, dude, you're right. Do you have like a BB gun?" And then you'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's an airsoft rifle," and then you would just go your way and no harm, no foul. But it seems like they made a big deal of it, and they were like saying you were gonna rob a store, and then like try to fabricate evidence against you, and then some crazy fucked up evil shit. Like that's what it seems like to me. I could be wrong, but I don't know.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Okay.
That's literally what it is. But I'm
Yeah.
saying once you have that narrative, you create that
Yeah.
rhetoric about this example,
Yeah.
and then you mention Black skin.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
further questioning. There's no further like, oh well,
Yeah.
do we need to ask more questions to vet this? Do we need
Yeah.
to should we go
Yeah.
treat this with a certain amount of trepidation
Yeah.
before we go in and attack?
Yeah.
No, the moment you mention Black skin, a gun, anything,
Yeah.
concrete.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. There's no
That's
more
fucked
questions
up.
that are being
Yeah.
asked, and that
Yeah.
literally right there is the point, the intersection. That's the intersection between where you have people of color stating that you have people who are talking about they're fearing for their lives.
Yeah.
These very same people that are talking about they're fearing for their lives are the exact same people who are trained to operate with clarity of
Yeah.
mind in a heightened situation.
Yeah.
So how is it that
Yeah.
in this heightened situation you cannot distinguish a gun from my wallet?
Yeah. It seems like
Yeah.
it seems like it was a big miscommunication. Like I guess the person thought you had a gun or whatever or something. It just seems like it would just be like a big miscommunication and just be like, "Hey, we got a call. This happened. Are you guys okay?" And then you'd be like, "Oh yeah, I have a BB gun. We were just kind of playing around." The cop be like, "All right, man, no worries. Just people could get a wrong idea maybe about this or that, and then just kind of go on your way and make it no big deal at all." And it
That would be
seems
the
like
hope.
yeah,
That would be the hope.
yeah, that's what I
That would be the
thought.
hope.
Like, what would have happened then? Like your story take. Then I'm not playing. Do cops do fabricate evidence? They tell you some shit that's wrong to get you to confess on stuff. That is true, no matter what color. But
Right.
that is true. They do because they what do they say? Because I mean, I can tell you my personal stories if it's my turn to talk. But yeah, dude, I'm really. That sounds like because it seems like that whole confrontation should have been over in like 3 minutes. but it ended up being like a shit show and you going to jail or getting put in some it just was a fucked up situation. I was like, what? It just seemed like a simple thing that turned into like a huge shit show.
through
Yeah,
and through.
yeah,
And if I can say one thing that actually goes in line with what you said, Nate, it's just about the experience.
yeah,
Because more like literally more commonly you'll hear about the experience being that of what I stated
yeah.
in less of a terms of it being introduced of like, oh, concern about, oh, well, what's happening? We have to approach it this way. And you just hear like some random shit that's popping off, and like all of a sudden now guns are drawn. It's the experience. As a white person, you're less common to experience something like that because being looked at as a gun owner, that's would be considered something that's American. The terms and the definitions of what's American have been whitewashed. When you think of an American, you think about someone that's white operating in their liberty to own a gun. You don't think about a black person in the terms of American in those same pretenses. You
They
you look
literally
at
shot. Sorry.
no go ahead, like go ahead.
I was just gonna say they literally shot Philando Castillo in front of his girlfriend on camera
Yeah.
after doing exactly what you're supposed
What
to
you should
do
do.
Yeah.
if you
Well,
have a
so
gun on you.
it seemed like I definitely feel that let's say they got that story and it was a white person, the cops would have been way less um uh like on heightened sense of something bad happening. But because they said it was a black person, they got all like, oh my gosh, blah blah blah, and like all like I mean, they should have treated the situation the same exact thing. They roll up, see what's wrong, then that's what happens. But they took a way more like something more violent was going to happen because you were black, and that's fucked up. You shouldn't,
Yeah, and
put a stereotype on
that's a
like a
prime
super.
example.
Yeah,
That's a
like,
prime
that's like a
example of
super.
white
Yeah,
privilege.
yeah. That is some stuff that goes on. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but
Have y'all seen like the social experiments in recent years where it's like I don't want to misquote what state it was, but it was an open carry state, and they were doing a social experiment where they had a white person open carry a rifle in public to see what would happen to him or what kind of response he would get, and then they had a black person do the same thing, and the white person, the cops came up and asked them all types of questions, tried to see what was going on. No guns were drawn on him, and then the black person, there were no questions asked. It was get on the ground, and then they go over and take the gun, and then, you know, just the response. And it's an open carry state, both legally carrying and brandishing a firearm, you know, and one was questioned and left alone, and then the other one was held at gunpoint. So, and the first one was white, and the latter being black. So, that just goes to show you.
Sasha, Darion, do you want to add anything afterwards? But Sasha.
No, Sasha can go. He's right. He has a.
Another example of that is in, I guess, assuming it was 2020. There was I don't remember what it was, but there was a large group of people that I think gathered around the U.S. or the Capitol in Washington D.C. It might have been certain state capitals as well, but it was a bunch of like I don't know if it was a gun rights kind of rally or it was like a pro-Trump thing. I don't remember, but it was a bunch of people carrying guns, mostly white people, and I think the police presence was minimal. And then there's like literal photos of it, videos. You could see police presence minimal, and then you compare it to the videos and pictures of BLM marches, no weapons or anything, huge police presence. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
You're talking about when they were, what was it, like Colorado? When they actually, it was over the mask mandates, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
Was
so.
that
Yeah. Because they were kind of grouping the whole like masks thing, like it's
Michigan?
our
It's
right,
Michigan,
whatever,
right? Yeah,
something like that. But they brought guns to show that they have rights to not wear masks, which
yeah.
Darion, anything?
Mm, well, I guess I don't have any stories of like that magnitude. Like I've never been pulled over by a cop and anything terrible happened to me. And like actions like that are very memorable, and like you just never forget that. Like you have like that's just in your mind. It's gonna be there for forever. And I don't necessarily have that, so where I can just recall that off an instant, like from Alaska. And not saying that we don't have those same issues in Alaska, but I was sheltered by like my friends, and a lot of my friends were minority, like a lot of Asian and a lot of black, like Devin himself. Like I didn't, and like I wasn't out of my normal areas, whereas I'm just school, sports, and home pretty much. And I didn't see any of that until mostly when I came out here to like Spokane and like the lower 48. Um, just like more like of the political views of people and just hearing what other people have to say. Because back home, I'm just around my friends. Like I don't hear any of that stuff. We don't talk about politics. But like as soon as I came out here and like being in the construction field, like you just hear more and more stuff and just being out and about. Like I went out downtown over in Coeur d'Alene out in Idaho, um, just with one of my friends that I had met since being out here, and it was just her and I were just hanging out. And some dude like comes up to her, is like talking to her, and like gets her number and everything, and they end up going on a date. And then the next day, she calls me and tells me about her date, and she ends up telling me that he's a skinhead, and that like on the date that she like they just went on this like first time going on this date, like he's telling her like black jokes and stuff like that, and just like I don't know. I'm not saying like this stuff doesn't happen in Alaska, but I never experienced it. So I came out here until you start seeing other things. My grandmother driving from New Orleans to Seattle. She's from Seattle. She lives in now, but all of our family still lives in Seattle. And she drives. She was driving there for whatever reason, but she stopped in Idaho, southern Idaho, like to stay the night because she's been driving for however long. And she's in the elevator, and this dude's in there with her, and she's like, "You don't belong here. Like, you shouldn't be in this area." And like, just in a random hotel room, like in the elevator, she's like, "Worried, like, what's gonna happen to me? Like, what's going on?" And I don't know, just random stuff like that, just smaller things, not necessarily happening to me, just like some things I've witnessed. Being on a job site, I've seen, like I said before, like the N word, like written on stalls and stuff like that. One time, someone put on the bathroom stall, it said "American Lives Matter," and I crossed it out and put "Black," right? Black Lives Matter. And the person, someone came, like, followed that and put "don't" in between "black." And oh, between matters and lives. So Black lives don't matter, and put "as much as anyone else," so stop being the victim. And I don't know, just small stuff like that that I started to see. I don't know if it's because I was sheltered, didn't really have an open mind before about it, but now just being out here, being on my own,
Yeah.
I start to see more things more and more.
Yeah,
If it's okay if it's my turn to talk about some stuff
sure.
about like right. So I'll just say two things. I first say like a scenario type, then I'll say my experience with racism towards me. So the one thing that's a touchy subject is, let's say in Chicago, 80% of the crime or 90% of the crime is black on black. And let's say there's a call and a cop rolls up and there's a black person in the front seat. So this is what I would do if I was a cop. I call it healthy alertness and keep it righteous. So basically, I would be aware of the crime rate, but also I have that awareness that this guy could be the nicest person on the earth. So you just have to have good street smarts, and you don't have that automatic thing that because he's black, he's part of the crime unit. You could be aware of the crime, but you also have the healthy awareness that this person could be like the nicest person in the world. So basically, I would just go to the car just being alert, but also not with no judgment, just being aware and just talking to the guy and being a human being and being like, "Yo, what's good, bro?" and talking stuff, and just chilling out. So, how do you think that would go down? Or-
Go ahead, like I know you guys something to say.
Bro. All right, man. So,
But acknowledge what he's asking as well.
well, yeah, I okay. So the acknowledgement, I think it should be on a case by case basis still, like disregarding statistics, because again, I do think that, there's just certain expectations that you should just be aware of going into that profession, regardless of where you do it. And then I think that specific situations should escalate based on the actual progression of that specific situation, not an assumption or, something like that. Now, what I was going to say about like the black on black crime statistic, can we just talk about like
Yeah, I
where
don't
the
want to get
term,
into that whole thing, and like that could be a whole topic together. I just want to do a
but,
touch since we were talking
but,
about the one
You
thing.
can't bring it
but,
up and then just dodge
Yeah,
it.
I fucked up. Yeah, I opened
but,
the worms. Yeah, that could be like an hour long.
but no, like for real, can we just talk about the term black on black crime and like think about like really where it came from? You
Give
know
me
what I mean?
a
And
minute speak on it, and then we can move on.
Well, I wanted to
why
talk
do what?
about sports.
Sorry, I'm gonna let you like. Why do we hear the term black on black crime and not like white on white crime or Asian on Asian crime or Hispanic on Hispanic crime? Like, why is it only black on black crime that you ever hear? If two white people kill each other and they're on the news, you don't hear it called white on white crime. So why do we use the term black on black crime for crimes involving black people? And here's my understanding is it's another term to delegitimize and dehumanize us, and to kind of paint us more in the light of black people are just inherently criminalistic in nature, right? Because every race has incidents of like people killing each other, but black people are suddenly when it comes to murder, black people are the ones held to a higher moral standard. Like I don't, it make it make sense to me. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll just say from my perspective, well, I know like the whole all stereotypes are wrong and everything, but I guess I don't know, I guess the data shows that there's more African Americans killed by other African Americans on that crime site.
I
Like there's other like white people killed on white people and stuff. Like I don't want to speak about it because I don't know a lot about that statistics. I was just trying to say it like from my point of view. If I was a cop, I would treat everybody equally, but just be aware of like some statistics that goes on, and like it could be anywhere, you know. But like this kind of like if I'm my basis is like this: if I'm walking down a dark alley and I see a white person, no matter what race, I'm gonna have that awareness of that something could happen. But I also have that awareness that he could be the nicest person in the world. So I guess it just comes down to just having some respectful, righteous street smarts and kind of just like keeping it real, you know, and nothing towards racism or anything, just kind of having awareness about what stuff goes down in the city and stuff. And that was like my quick point of view thing. And then I wanted to talk about
Go ahead.
the
What's
one
the
little
story?
thing that happened to me. All right, so my story is, I guess Tevin already told me. I don't experience this a lot, and I feel like my story, whenever it happened to me, I was like, wow, this is what my friends could experience multiple times a day, and it really like put it in perspective of like how like shit can go down for all races and stuff, and it really got to me. So my story is real quick is that I was directing traffic at a bank. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, I was directing traffic at a bank in Belco in Harrisburg, and it was a good time. I didn't hold up a sign or anything. I just kind of was like directing traffic if stuff got, cars got in the way and stuff. And it was a cool experience. Like a lot of the cars just like blasted with marijuana and stuff, and like like the stuff you put in the chute, they would get blasted by marijuana. It was a good time, and I was chill. And then this one lady, uh, this one African American lady got very upset because she wasn't next, or the car in front of her was taking way too much longer. Like they had been there for 15 minutes and she was out arguing and stuff. And so I came over and I was like, hey ma'am, how can I help you? I'll get like, the manager out to talk to you. And she was just like, oh, shut up. And she was like, under her breath, she was like privileged. And then she went back in her car and sat. And I was just like, what the heck just happened? Like I was just like, I was trying to help you. And then like she just like called me privileged with like a smirk and like went back in her car and was like, I was like, dude, I'm trying to help you. Then I just kind of like, all right, just kind of sat there, and then like the managers came out and talked to her, and then she was okay and everything. But I was just trying to like be a mediator, and then she just kind of threw that word at me, and I was like, whoa. Then I thought like, what if this is what my friends get like have some multiple times a day? Like it had to make me feel like uncomfortable for the first time in my life, and I was just like, wow, what the heck? And he even knows that might even be like, not even bad for anybody. You're probably like, oh, I've been heard way worse than that little thing, So I don't want to make a big deal of that, but if there's any type of stuff that is racist towards me, that's the only thing I could recall. So yeah,
Cool, cool. Thank you, Nate. Go ahead, Devin.
yep.
Yeah, so like Darion, so I grew up in Alaska, and I grew up with a really diverse friend group. So like I said earlier in the podcast, like you can't really tell that I'm half black. I look white, blue eyes, light skin, all of that, right? So I served, 4 years in the United States Army, and that's where I kind of found, a lot of the biggest example of racism, and like what Nate was talking about earlier when he said, he believes that when you see something, you should say something, but not everybody is built that way. Not everybody can open their mouth and say something. And I got into a situation where it had to be me that said something, and I paid the price for it. So one of my soldiers was going through a really hard time, and he had to be at a medical appointment. And so I filled out all the proper paperwork, turned it into command, and let them know he's not going to be present. Now, he's a black soldier, right? So while we're doing the job that we're supposed to do, one of the NCOs, the non-commissioned officers, someone that's 3 ranks higher than I am, asked where he was. I told him, you know, and then somebody else was slotted to do his job, and that soldier couldn't be there for a family issue, so I was covering down, but he was unaware that that's what was happening. So even though the job is getting done, he made the comment that, you know, um, I don't even know why we have these people. We should just, do it ourselves because, it never gets done anyway. And, I'm looking around and nobody says anything. The person that's even a higher rank than him is laughing about it. And so I stood up and I asked him what people. And he said, And I said, I don't know. Which people are you talking about? Are you talking about the soldier that's in medical, or are you talking about the soldier that had an emergency with their family? Last time I checked, the job that's supposed to get done is getting done. So I'd like to know what people you're talking about. At this point, the person that's a higher rank than him tells me that if I'm going to address somebody at a higher rank, I need to stand at parade rest, which to me is kind of a slap in the face, because what I'm doing is I'm standing up for my soldier, but not just that, I'm standing up for somebody who I feel is being discriminated against right now, right in front of me, right? So I go to parade rest and I'm standing there and they're just ridiculing me. Like, why do you think it's necessary to stand up for them? They're the ones not doing their job. Well, if you're going to target them and say these people, yeah, last time I checked, we're all soldiers. You can say this soldier or that soldier. You don't say these people. Um, Through that, we had this whole altercation. I had a couple of negative counselings, disrespecting leadership, posed to me, handed down to me, and for the next 4 weeks, each weekend I was on a 24-hour shift. So that meant that a job that you get probably once every 3 months, because it's supposed to be rotational through the people in the unit. It's everybody's job. You have to have duty for 24 hours. Every Friday evening, I had duty for 24 hours. So I worked from Friday morning till Sunday morning, because that's what they wanted to do. And it took one of the senior leaders in the battalion that wasn't even associated with pretty much the group that I worked for, to come in and ask me why I'm stuck there doing this job. And I told him exactly why. I told him, I was like, it's not fair. You tell us we're supposed to stand for something, like we have Army values, right? We're supposed to be loyalty, like have loyalty, have honor, duty, respect, and these people aren't showing that, and I'm being punished because I did the right thing, pretty much what y'all told me to do, and pretty much standing up for what I believe in for those that aren't there to defend themselves. Um, and so he was like, "Yeah, that's not right," and so pulls me from it. And then I had I had to change companies because the NCO that was talking bad about the other soldiers said that I was a bad soldier and that I was terrible for the company and that I needed to move. And so I ended up having to go to a different command. And that's my story.
Bro.
Man, big props to you for standing up for what's right, though. I respect that.
Same.
It's freaking crazy. Anything else anyone wants to add? I'll
I
give
have
my
something real quick, if that's okay.
what you got.
I have a scenario that happened, and I didn't know the right way to say it, but to come off as offensive, so or not to come off. I just like really keep it real, whatever. So I went to Men's Warehouse, and I got fitted for a suit, and it was a really cool African American dude. He was shorter. He was awesome. We chilled out, whatever. So when I went to the store, there was a new person working there, and I forgot the guy's name that got it to me, and my suit didn't fit, and he was like, "Well, what did the person look like that gave you the suit?" And I was like, he was shorter. Like the last thing I wanted to say was black because I thought that would come off as offensive, but like I didn't know, so I was just like, he was shorter, and the guy was like, "Well, was he black?" I was like, yeah. He's like, "I know what you're talking about. You didn't mean to be offensive. You're just, what else?" So I didn't really know like how to say that without coming off as offensive. But I don't know if that was a, you know what I mean? It was just kind of awkward situation. So I don't know if you could maybe tell me, was it like I don't know, like the best situation to do that? Because like the guy was cool, he was shorter. I forgot his name, and then he wasn't working there. And then the manager was there, and he's like, "Well, what did the guy look like? That, do you know his name? What did he look like?" And I was like, "He was shorter." And I was like, and I feel like if I would just say he was black, it would just come off as like not a good look.
It,
So
I think it all depends
yeah,
on the situation. Like in that
yeah,
situation,
okay, yeah,
there's nothing malicious to go on. He asked a simple question
yeah,
to try to figure out who he
yeah.
was
And
talking
the
about.
manager was like, "Was he black?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, I know what you're talking about." He's
Yeah,
like, "Okay, yeah,
yeah.
all right, yeah." Yeah, because it's just situations like that kind of put you in a corner that, like, sometimes just me saying African American, I feel like can come off like as weary. So I just try to have like a righteous will of like, what to say the most respectful of like any heritage, because I feel like saying someone's heritage is very good, but you have to say it in like a righteous will way, you know?
Hmm.
And that's just my opinion. So, yep, thanks.
Cool.
Cool.
All right. Anybody else? Then I'll give my story and then we can close it out. We've been here for a while. Thank you guys for sticking around for so long. Guys have anything else? No, no. All right. So kind of same light that Darion spoke in. I haven't really experienced anything super exaggerated, super, exacerbated, whatever the word might be. Um, but that's kind of like, I think that's just because where I grew up at and whatnot. Um, so thankfully my parents have taught me to be respectful as much as I possibly can. Yes ma'ams, no ma'ams, all that stuff. Um, so when I was in Alaska, I think I was either no, I was finishing my bachelor's degree. I was at college. And didn't have a car. Wasn't trying to ask anybody for a ride or anything, but was trying to get a haircut. So ended up going to the little strip that had like a bunch of restaurants and a barber shop and all that. And um, I don't remember the name of the place, but it was like a old school white barber shop. A bunch of white dudes in there, older white guys cutting hair. I've been there a couple times before, and the person that ended up cutting my hair wasn't there before. He was who I thought was a native Alaskan dude. Cut my hair about like 2 or 3 times before the previous summer and whatnot. So ended up going over there just trying to get a haircut. End up sitting down, chilling out for a little bit. Like 20, 30 minutes go by, waiting on people to get their haircut so I can be the next in line. Simple things. So and I'm getting up. There was one of the men in the shop cutting hair. He just had finished somebody's hair, so I was like, all right, cool. Go up to him and then sit down and everything. And then he asked me what I want, and then like I know in my mind like he might not know the terminology that I might want to use, so I'm like, all right, just give me like a 2 or 3 on top, just do like a 2 on the side or something like that, whatever. And then I asked him, I was like, do you know how to do fades? And then he was like, yeah, but I'm not that good at it. So I was like, all right, well, like that's fine. And then he told me that another one of the guys there was better at it. So I was like, all right, cool. I could just wait on him since, he knows what he's doing. So go sit back down, wait like another 10, 15 minutes or whatever on this other guy to free up. So waiting. He finishes the dude in the chair, and then I get up, we lock eyes, and then I'm just chilling, staring at his eyes. And then he hits me with the stereotypical old white racist dude smile, smirk, just shaking his head no. I'm just like,
What?
I was like, you serious? Like, really? And he's just, I'm sorry, you serious? Like, really? And then, like, I'm stunned at this point because I'm like, one, kind of like what Darian said, I haven't really experienced anything like this before. Like, at least, like, I haven't experienced it myself. Um, so yeah, shaking his head no, and then he started saying some stuff, which could be taken in 2 different lights. Depends on how you want to look at it, but it could have been said in a different way. So what he ends up saying next is, um, one, he assumed that I was in the military, and if you're from Alaska, you know why that assumption is made. Can anybody tell me what that assumption is?
Like we don't like the cold.
Because you're African American.
Thank you, Nate, the one person.
Keeping it real, I don't know. That's what, yeah.
Yeah, that because he assumed I was in the military, and he was like, "Why don't you get one of your military friends to cut your hair?"
Damn.
I was
Yeah,
like,
you told me before. That's
"Yeah,
fucked.
yeah." And then after that, he ended up saying some stuff like, you can just go to one of these colored shops out here, get one of your colored friends to cut your hair, stuff like that." And I'm just like, word, dude. This is what I'm thinking to myself, like, word, dude. And I just got up and left. I'm just like, you know what, whatever.
It was all white people in the shop.
The people cutting hair, yes, there was like a native or an Asian dude that was sitting down in a chair over, and then like everybody else, yeah, it was white. So it's just like no one said anything. Like the whole thing happened, and then I was just like, all right, I'm just not gonna get my hair cut then. But yeah,
Mm.
I'm like, it could be either way. Maybe he didn't want to mess my hair up. I don't know.
That dude was a piece of
Man,
shit.
the use of the word colored though, like,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, like, there's some people I feel like would blame that on a generational thing, but I feel like you know the meaning behind that word and the implications it has. You know what I mean? He
yeah.
could have literally described you any other way. You know what I mean? So yeah, I agree. It's probably just a piece of shit. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, he could have, like, I always use the term healthy alertness. Like, okay, maybe you're from, the military because you're African American, but I don't have, like, why, I don't know why that has anything to do with cutting your hair, though. Like, I don't know, because you're in the military, he doesn't want to cut your hair. Like, I don't know, like,
nah, he
the
was
guy,
fishing for
He's
excuses.
saving face.
yeah, okay, yeah, he's just like a piece of shit. Okay, I'm thinking, okay, you think you're in the military, then why? And then he just as an excuse, like, to be like, he's just a fucking piece of shit. He's a degenerate person for thinking that. Like, okay, you think I'm in the military, like, all right, that's cool. But then he just went racist mode. Like, what the fuck?
Well, I think the implication again with the military is that people, usually black people that are in Alaska, are up in Alaska for 2 reasons: either to work on the pipeline, the slopes,
Or in the military.
or they're in the
Okay.
military. And so, like, I think with that knowledge coming beforehand, I think that's the reason why that was made. One of my military friends could have been another black dude.
Yeah.
But even if he made that assumption based off that information, like
He was racist, like
he still
As in prejudice.
yeah, he still could have cut your hair, and he was just looking for an excuse
yeah,
Yeah.
not to be
yeah,
like, no, I don't want to cut your.
yeah,
I mean, he did end up saying it,
yeah.
so
I mean,
like,
he could have been like, "Oh, bro, you in the military?" And then like you said, "Oh yeah, oh that's cool, bro. Military, what are you doing? Whatever." Then I'm like, "Oh, that's cool, man." Then like, "Oh, I'll cut your hair, bro." Yeah, he could have just had a conversation about it. And then he just was just like, "Yeah,
He saying no from
just
the get-go. Like, yeah, it wasn't
yeah."
gonna happen.
He had nothing to do with the military. He just said no, and he made up his mind when he saw you come in, and that's what the fucked up shit is.
Yeah.
And those people like that just fucking make me really mad, man.
Same here, Nate, man. It is what it is. Hopefully we could change it, you know? Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. It's gonna take time for sure. And again, I've said this so many times before, but social media is helping out. People can hear each other tell stories, all these different perspectives about all these different things happening, you know. I'm grateful for it, and I hope it continues
Yeah.
to push us in the right
And
direction.
then my phone's gonna die real quick, but I think this has to be heard for racism and stuff. It's a lot more exists than I thought it does, but I do believe, like I said, there's more good people than bad people. So real quick, I have my Indian friend called Manal, and so basically, she came from India when she was 22, went to college for 4 or 5 years to get her degree in engineering, to have a 1 in 3 chance to get a green card to stay in America. Now that's fucking insane work ethic, committing 5 years of your life to have a 1 in 3 chance to stay in America, because that puts up in a lottery. And what I found out is these motherfuckers, the job that she works with, they kind of use that green card as extortion. So they put all this extra work on her and stuff, and she has to take it because she's like, well, if I don't do their work, then they might not sponsor me. You know what I'm saying? So they put her at like Allison Hill and Harrisburg working. They give her like almost double the work what people do, because like she wants her green card, so she does it because she's afraid if she doesn't do the work, then they're not going to sponsor her. She has to find another other job or something. And I was just like, that is one of the most fucked up things that like that still actually goes on and stuff. And well, she ended up getting sponsored and stuff, and she has her job and everything. But I was just like, dude, you just can't put up with that shit. But like, it's just unacceptable, and it's just so sad that it happens. And I think that was, I had to tell you guys about that because that's just like a crazy racist stuff that still goes on in the world today. So
All right, there, yeah, and then we'll close out.
You saying that she can't put up with that, but in her scenario she kind of has. If she wants that green
yeah,
card, she has to do
yeah.
that. There's no other route that she could take. She
I
doesn't have the
said
power in that scenario.
you could write a letter to the boss explaining stuff like how she doesn't like to do this and that, like basically kind of call him out in a way without, put him on blast a little bit, stick up for yourself and say, hey, no, no, here and there. But you're right, dude. At the end of the day, it's fucking hard because he can just snap his fingers and be like, all right, fuck you. I don't want you to be work here anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
because she writes that letter. Like, what could
yeah.
happen to her if she writes that letter?
Yeah. And I said, you write that letter if you have like, you can write it no matter you want. Obviously, you write it, you do what you got to do. But I said, if you have like other jobs lined up in case if it goes bad, that people would sponsor you because there are good people out in the world, like I'm saying, then, get work at another job than work for some asshole. But like I said, it's like I told her to stick up for yourself, but I said that you just got to do what you got to do, man. And, I can give you advice, but at the end of the day, it's very hard to make the decision. Like, stick up for yourself and do what you got to do, but also know that you have the risk of some dude just kind of like getting rid of you. So it's a challenge. I told her to stick up for herself and get other jobs lined up, but I did agree with her and her views that it's very challenging, and it's so sad that it happens in America still. And I thought, like, since we're talking about racism, you guys should know about that.
Word. Appreciate it, man.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're at the end. We've been trucking along for a long time. But I appreciate you guys telling me the stories and whatnot. I think it's good that we do these
All you
things.
guys.
So, with that being said, thank you guys. If you guys want to give a final shout out to whatever, we can do that, and then we'll call it good.
Yeah, I gotta leave soon and take my medicine. I think is the next podcast going to be about mental health or,
No, we have
or
the next 2 weeks kind of set up, but we'll get to that.
like
Definitely
the
want to talk
third
about
week?
that.
Or, yeah.
We can
So
probably do
yeah,
like third week.
yeah,
We'll talk.
third week. I'll definitely be on that. From personal experiences, but I'm gonna keep to the point. I know that's why I like talking to you guys. You might have some different viewpoints on things, but at the end of the day, we can have a civil conversation and agree and disagree with people and still be friends and still love each other. Whereas today in the world, it's so sad that if people share different viewpoints than you, then they're like, oh, I don't want to be your friend anymore. And they just walk away and like, all that and stuff. And that's so sad. So I just love the opportunity to hang out with you guys. I love all you guys. I definitely learned a lot, about and how your guys' viewpoints about the NFL and stuff and how that stuff goes down. And I got like a bigger, broaden my spectrum in that. And just want to say, thanks again, guys. I love all you and thanks for your time. And I support your beliefs and I always say, respectfully, be happy being you, man. And you guys out there and kill it because I believe in all you guys.
Thanks, man.
God bless.
Yes, sir. All right, whoever else wants to go next, shout outs. So maybe pick.
I'm gonna just shout out my usuals, man. It's light_strife on Insta. Uh, light strife on Snapchat, Twitter. I don't really got nothing special. You know what I mean? My boys, Gio and George out here coming with that heat. I'm gonna have to go
Yo, do we need to play something real quick?
do, do some of that. but yeah, man, follow me on IG. I'm a moderately okay cosplayer, and Gio's trying to bring me out of rap retirement. So
I still
you know
got
what I
my
mean?
rap, bro. I got a new rap. Next
But
time. I'll bring it up.
but yeah, that's all I got, man. And then make sure you follow and subscribe PerspekTev on YouTube because this is important and we need to have these conversations. So thank you to everybody who's been listening. Shout out to y'all.
We'll go to Devin.
Thank you for inviting me, man. Initial time on the podcast. Great views, great individuals, some good stories, and some really good information. Like Light said, man, follow PerspekTev, right, on YouTube. Get this out there, right, so the conversation can be had. The only way things change is if we change them, and the only way we could change them is if we know about them, right?
Appreciate it, man. Sasha, then Darion.
This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed talking to you guys. I wish I could talk more, but this is like my first podcast ever, so I'm still kind of trying to get used to talking. Just trying to be more of a social person recently, and I guess this is just part of it. But yeah, I definitely would like to be more of these in the future. And yeah, I'm Axomp on all the socials, so yeah, you can follow me there if you want.
Word.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say this real quick. You asked some really good questions, and that's always something I encourage on this podcast. Because like I said, a lot of people, from my perspective, I feel like a lot of people want to be heard and don't want to necessarily listen. So I do appreciate you coming on and asking those questions. All right, Darion.
I'd like to shout out to PerspekTev for having us here and allowing us to get these words off of our chest and allowing us to come together. Shout out to all the people that are watching or end up watching, or and hopefully this podcast keeps going. We get more people on here and that can also share their views and their viewpoints.
Try to make it happen.
Hey.
All right, George.
Yes, sir. Same as everyone else. Shout out to PerspekTev for another installation and being able to join on and meld the minds with other great beings. The one thing I will say is comprehension, more so than communication being the key. Comprehension is pivotal. We can have all the conversations that we want to have in the world, but unless we are able to dispend how we think and how we perceive for the moment to hear someone else's and another beings and hear their entirety, we're really achieving nothing. So comprehension is the thing that needs to be focused upon as far as hearing out someone else and being able to come to any kind of resolution or change or whatever the case may be. So I love the fact that we were able to come here and hear everyone's perspective, but more than anything, tag to that perspective. But more than anything, being able to collectively understand where others are coming from and then also integrate that perspective into how then we delegate and act in ourselves. Myself, my own tag is Joey the Genius. That's underscore JoeTheGeneus. Producer, actor, model, trying to work on skits. So just jump on. We'll get stuff cracking.
Hey.
Yo, shout out to Darian with the wine bottle canvas back there. Dude, that slaps, bro. That slaps. I like that. It's a good look, bro.
Thank you.
I like that. That's a good look, man. It's a good canvas, bro.
Oh, man.
I like that shit. One love. That's you, bro.
Sasuke, are you here? Good sir. Gio.
He's lost in the sauce.
Man. Well, go follow Gio at a sauce K who. That's sauce as in like soy sauce.
Lost
K
in translation.
as in the letter K, who as in WHO. Go follow Corporate Thugs, his music group with him and his partner. I think his name is Larry. They put out some good music, some EDM stuff, but kind of a little bit of
That's my boy. I
hip hop
DJ
beats.
a little bit. EDM. I mix some shit
And
up.
what else? Chrysalis Collective, also on Instagram. Check out all that. George, if you're cool with me playing a beat, we can ride out to that.
If you're cool with doing repeats,
I'm down for that.
Throw that thing on.
What you want the?
I'm trying to find something else to send you guys, but yeah,
we can ride out to that. But last thing, follow, as everyone's already said a billion times, follow me at PerspekTev on pretty much everything: TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, pretty much everything. Instagram, there you go. And
yeah, you can drop your Instagram handle on like the PerspekTev chat, then I can look you up and friend you.
Where I got you.
All right, because I kind of forgot what all you guys said, but I want to be all your friends because you guys are like really cool people and righteous people, and I love all you.
Word. But yeah, go follow the socials. We'll keep pushing out content. I'm trying to be a little bit consistent about that. Sometimes obsess over it. Sometimes I'm like, nah, I'm good, man. I'm asleep this week. But yeah, I'm gonna keep pushing that, and
we're putting in work.
Hey man, that's what it's about. All right, I'm gonna go find this beat and then we can ride out. But if you have to go, then that's fine. It's pretty much the end. Thank you guys. Where's this junk at, man? The hottest of hot fires. Where did you put it at, George?
This is like the ending trailer.
It should be in the podcast chat.
Yeah. Which one do we want to do? The first one, the second one? Want to hear both?
Man, either one, man. Both of them.
Yeah, you can do either one. I normally generally am a fan of my first one, the audio wave one.
Okay.
But yeah, either one. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Let's see if I can hit both up. We'll do it.
This is like we're signing out. This is like the ending trailer, like an Ionasha or like on a big like tip. This is like the ending trailer to our session. I got you guys.
Oof, let me catch some of this.
I don't know if Darion's trying to get back in or not. You just fell out.
I'll listen until my phone doesn't die.
Shoot.
Let's go. Yeah.
All right, we ready? Make sure I got my volume. Everyone's tapped in.
It says it's paused.
Oh, I'm a bum.